Live from Studio A in PressCorps World Headquarters, this is Zero Dark PressCorps. It's a live, community-based call-in show, fielding your thoughts on and tales from the Foxhole War. So join the Discord right now through the link below, sign in through the call queue text channel, and hop in the voice lounge for a chance to share your story. Tonight's developer guest, lead developer Mark Foot. And now, your host, 13-time winner of the Geoffrey Jennings Award for Excellence in Journalism, Geoffrey Jennings.
All right, welcome. Bless you. Cover your mouth. Make sure you're away from the screen and wear a mask. Welcome back to Zero Dark PressCorps. Just as the man said, it's been an exciting couple of a war and a half that we've experienced here at the PressCorps. Taking a small break as we reorient ourselves here for the 60th conflict. But in fact, we need to get started on those releases. I need to get started on those releases. But in terms of what we've been up to here, before we get started in earnest, I just wanted to share just a couple of things that the PressCorps has done, aside from what you usually hear on the radio, all the great work and continued new content on there that's always playing. Try to get playing all the time. We do have a couple of things. For instance, we do have this awesome piece of artwork by Superior, who is one of our many storied artists, and the one I'm displaying right now is his interpretation of the Port of Rhyme, capture of the Port of Rhyme by the Colonials in War 59, the last gasp of the colonial effort on the East Coast, and really just the entire war, was failed to stop the inevitable Warden victory, considering they had already taken over about 70% of the map. But just that last gasp was quite exciting to see and quite exciting to hear, and now immortalized in illustration. Additionally, we do have, which you can view in the PressCorps Discord, the collection of releases, Newswire releases. We have a link to this album, and for a total of 35 releases. Thank you to all of our contributors, all of the authors who shared their story with us here in the PressCorps, and of course a lot of our reporters doing incredible work on the field. This scroll just keeps on going, and that's because, again, a lot of how we dress this up is on the part of our publishers. But in terms of the stories written, every single one of these stories is based on something real that happened in the game. Now, of course, how much they exaggerate is up to your interpretation. But again, every single one of these is based on a true story, and that's exactly what we love to showcase here in the PressCorps. It just keeps on going. My goodness. But regardless, we do have with us again, returning guest as always, lead developer from Clapfoot, lead developer of Foxhole, Mark. Mark, how are you doing this morning, evening, or afternoon?
It's the evening, and it's good. I'm glad to be back. It's been, I guess, this is almost like a regular thing now.
I know, right?
Yeah, so
I know too.
I'm really glad to be back, and it's like, yeah, I'll leave it at that for now.
Okay. Is the break over? Is the break over for a lot of the staff?
Yeah, the break is over for a lot of the staff. I had to find some time for myself, so hopefully that will come soon. But we're really just trying to get the roadmap in place, because this is a bit of a unique time for us, because we are on a bit of more of a timeline than we were previously. We sort of really want to get that goal of 1.0 sometime mid next year. So for the first time, there is sort of this, it's no longer, hey, you know what, like, there's going to be a whole 2 years ahead of us, and your mindset has to change now, right? When there's only about less than a year, your mindset really has to change. Otherwise, you're just sort of never going to ship. So that's one thing that is a little different.
All right, well, we'll get to it. As usual, I'd like to open up with some of my personal questions. And full disclosure, in case it wasn't obvious before, I do share these with Mark Foot before I ask them. That way we can maximize the answer as much as possible, just in case that wasn't clear. And it's been that way for a long time. But starting off here, does Foxhole plan on maintaining its norm of map restarts at the beginning of every war? Are there any concepts floating around right now that would introduce some sort of stay of the conditions of the previous war into the next? Does the question make sense?
Yeah, it totally makes sense. So we had a lot of long philosophical questions or philosophical discussions about this over the last year or two, and a lot of where those discussions always start is, okay, what is the ideal version of this game, right? What is the ideal version that we eventually want to make? And I think the ideal version, there is a lot more of a continuity. We took a look at how far we can stretch Foxhole. Foxhole started off as, just a single region. The wars only lasted about a day, and even before that, it was a common prototype. And when you start talking about these things, they always led down this really, really deep rabbit hole of, if you really want to get outside the framework of have a war that lasts for a few weeks and then you restart it, you really have to bring in a lot more things. Otherwise, we found that trying to do it any other way would just feel a lot more artificial. So an example would be if you want to say have a game in between the wars that actually mattered, you would have to reach outside of the scope and start looking into things like simulating the politics behind what starts the war, right? Simulating the development of a city that's outside of the military side of things. And if you that's really the only way you can do it properly, is if you sort of reach out of the real-time strategy game sort of thing into a civilization type of a framework. The other way to do it, which we thought a lot about, was a much more artificial sort of abstraction of that, and maybe the resistance phase at the beginning, some of the goals of that was trying to reach that. But ultimately, it would have to be some sort of I've read your posts a while back about how resistance phase could work, and I think there's a lot of exciting ideas there. Ultimately, though, the question always boils down to, what do you do to get it back to the stable point of the start of the next war? And we couldn't think of a way to do that wasn't overly artificial, right? Because the more natural you get, the more it starts to stray out either into that higher scope, or you end up with huge instabilities there, right? So at this current time, I don't think we're gonna be going outside of that framework. I know it's something that you are personally probably super excited about. I think it's something that we also are super excited about. It's just after all these long philosophical discussions, right now for this project on Foxhole, I don't think that we're going to be going outside of that framework anytime soon. Certainly not for 1.0. But we talk about it all the time. We've had crazy ideas. We seriously had ideas of maybe we just try a special war where it doesn't end, and maybe we put in some extra mechanics in, you can make a comeback from an island, a home island or something like that, and then we just sort of, we've talked about, let's just take that risk and see what happens. Maybe you would be able to recover. Maybe everyone's assuming that it's just going to be a huge shit show, but maybe we'll learn something valuable from it. But
right.
At some point,
true sandbox, full sandbox.
Yeah, full sandbox.
For better or worse.
Exactly, but at some point, you do have to draw the line, and I think so I would say as a studio we aren't finished with that goal. Foxhole 1.0, we're probably going to stay in the more or less in the framework that we have now.
Right, I understand that because you teased me earlier with like, well, you'd have to simulate like whole civilizations and all the politics of things outside of war, and I'm like, well, don't tempt me with a good time. But I think.
Well, like, it's an interesting discussion.
No, I get it. Yeah, it's like
down,
Eve, right? My go-to is
Yeah,
Eve,
yes.
and it's like, well, how did those wars start? Well, it's because one corporation forgot to pay something or whatever, or like two corporations have like backroom deals, and then it explodes into something else. And for Foxhole,
Exactly.
it's funny. As much as we cherish Foxhole's sandbox and its how natural it feels, how true much of a war it feels when the war actually gets going. It does kind of reset every time, and that like just feels like one giant round of a game. But yeah, I guess it's all about scope and what you guys are capable of within the framework of 1.0, I guess.
Exactly. I think if there is one thing that is still on the table that we're still taking a look at, and this is a much smaller way to do something like that, is we would eventually like for players to be able to send things into the future. So like, if example of this is if you could write like a letter in game, and that's kind of like a signpost, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it stays in the game in future war. So if you take like the Jade Cove Crisis, if players were able to build a monument of some sort, and it was completely driven by players, but then like a year later you come back to that same place and that monument is still there, I think that sort of thing is still on the table, and we're still interested in having that level of continuity.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't mind me asking something, if I could interrupt.
Mm-hmm.
Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
How would you guys moderate that? Because can I write anything on there?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think one thing that's proven to work reasonably well, it's not perfect, is the map post, the signpost, the upvote system has worked 90% of the time, I would say. And on the average, it's quite rare to see things that we probably wouldn't want in the game, right? So I think a potential system like that could work. Obviously, there would have to be a heavy filtering process of like only the most valued monuments or like letters or like war relics or what have you would actually be sent forward into the future. What's funny is we actually do have a system in place to send things into the future. Like, we don't even really have to do much work for that, because that system wasn't put in place a long time ago. It's just a matter of implementing the feature that would hook into there.
Okay.
Letters.
I know what he's
Player-driven
talking about.
narrative.
There was, real quick, I can clarify about that. There was an older system in game. This was back when the resistance was resistance mode was first introduced. They had supply caches you can make. Those supply caches you could put stuff in them and send to future wars. But the issue was they were so unbalanced they had to remove them.
Yep,
Yes,
I know.
that's right.
All right.
Just clarifying to the new players who are joining in.
Well, I guess we'll move because we do have a lot of people calling in tonight, which is fantastic. I love it. We'll just end with this question: what is your personal playtime in the live shard? Like, do you have a go-to activity? How long do you play for in a typical session? If your answer is under 6 hours, then clearly you don't play enough of the game. But what is your personal playtime like in the live shard?
Yeah, I would say probably 90% is logi. Whether it's solo logi, sometimes I play logi with some of the other members on the team, but mostly solo. Lately, we've been doing these operations on Friday afternoon, and we get a few more players on the team involved. But when I'm sort of like playing on my own, it's mostly logi. And I just kind of chip away in the background, and I try to help the team. That's usually what I do, and I play for like a few hours at a time sometimes. Some sessions are shorter than others, but it's definitely logi. I think in the earlier days of Foxhole, I used to play on the front line a lot more, but definitely over the last year or two, it's been mostly logi.
And sorry, did you mention an average time?
Yeah, like usually a couple of hours. I mean, I don't. It's rare for me to play for like a whole day. The schedule is quite busy, but I think most of the time when I do play, it'll be like logging on after work hours.
Every
And then
logistics
after
person's
dinner.
like, huh, amateur.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's no way I wouldn't. I don't play the game as much as I'm not gonna lie and say I play as much as some of these players here, but usually my logi activity when I do play, I'll log in after dinner,
Mhm.
play for like a few hours, something of that sort. And I also like doing logi because sometimes I get to do some other things while I'm doing something. If I'm just scrapping, again because I spend the whole day working on the game itself.
Of
To
course.
jump into some sort of like high octane activity in the game is even more like energy spent. So I tend to stick to like the more like relaxing activities in the game, like driving and like scrapping and that sort of thing.
Yeah. No, that's actually I can relate. My playtime is usually cut down to 40 minutes at a time. Sometimes a couple times in a day, but then it's like 40 minutes at a time just doing scrapping, and then maybe even longer if it's something like I do love the harvester. I tried out the harvester the other week, and that was actually really cool with the new vehicle mechanics and just the feel of it, and like a little pop up on the bottom left. I like that addition, but yeah, it's. I think you and I are in the same boat where we have so much to do with our respective projects. Obviously, yours is much bigger, but you don't have a lot of time to actually play the game. So
Actually,
it's interesting,
something that I do spend a lot of time on besides playing is it's just like watching the game. Like we
right?
monitor the war. Yeah, we just sit there and watch. Like this morning, because you know
Do you have a
it's
monitor? Does Clapfoot have a monitor dedicated to that? Like you have Foxhole stats on one side and then like streams on the other.
well, I mean, like we were all working from home now, but
Oh, right.
we always thought before to have like a TV at the office that would just show like the world map. But we spend a lot of time just like flying around in game, just to learn, and because like, we get a lot of feedback, and we want to see it. We want to see it like firsthand. So, and sometimes we don't really get to like play a lot. So, as much as we would like. So, a lot of times we just spend watching things, seeing what's happening at the front, seeing if there's a new piece of content, if there's a tank that everyone's like saying is too overpowered or is not powerful enough. We do spend a lot of time in watching those things, and we do have like it's very often that some sort of like red flag will be tripped in our monitoring, and we'll notice, okay, there's a huge rush of players all of a sudden in this region, and then we'll know something's happening there, and then we'll go there and we'll check out what's happening. It's usually like a huge operation or something like that. So
Wow. Again, you've always the devs have always been hinting at these tools like being able to track stats that we can't see and all these alert systems that would make our job so much easier in the press corps, but also take a lot of the grunt work out of it. And we pride ourselves on the stupid amount of grunt work of just sitting around waiting for a story to develop. So. Which is why people say, "Oh man, give PressCorps, flying god ability so that they don't get hurt." Like, no, that's not fun. That's not as fun when you're just watching from behind a rock as someone's trying to kill you. So, in any case, thank you, Mark, for your input as always. And I think we'll turn it now to our esteemed callers joining in as always. Again, if you want to get in the call queue, it's quite a lengthy queue now, but never hurts to try. Go to the Discord link. Go to the PressCorps Discord through the link below. Just click on the Discord picture. It'll bring you there, and go to the call queue channel, and we will get you into the line. And I think we will start off with our first caller of the evening. Here is Dark Leftovers. Dark Leftovers, welcome to Zero Dark PressCorps. How are you?
Hello, I'm doing good. How about yourselves?
Doing all right. All right, excited to hear what you have for us here.
All right, so of course, got one for you, Mark. I know a couple of weeks ago, when the talk about the howitzer emplacement was MIA, you told the community that there was going to be a future artillery rework, and for a while now, I've had my own, well, more of a passion dream of my own vision for our artillery in general. Geoffrey, is it okay if I post the link in the Twitch?
Yeah, absolutely. Go for it. And obviously, we won't go over word for word the whole spiel, but I have read the proposal, and it is a very interesting proposal, and one that I have to throw my support behind just because I like the presentation. But in any case,
I
go
haven't
ahead,
seen the
Spots.
proposal yet, and I'm pretty interested in artillery rework on my half as well.
So yeah, Dark, why don't you go over some of the main points on what you'd like to see with our fire support options here?
Yeah, don't worry. I wrote some just for the sake of this.
Mhm.
So the general rework that I proposed was increasing the range at the cost of accuracy. Giving artillery more of a further range increase will, lower in general the accuracy of the gun, and shortening it will, return that accuracy. But ultimately, just removing the whole base of 100% accuracy on any type of indirect fire. Then going off of that, it would add more of some dynamic changing effects that would affect the battlefield, which would be shell shock would be a more of a visual distortion slash muffling sounds, and if possible, like a light low pitch, just for immersion's sake, because a lot of the times, I don't know, like you just don't really feel like anything's happening with you. You have this current suppression mechanic in Foxhole, but you don't really pay attention to the icon itself, but more so you're just annoyed that, oh, I can't shoot something. But adding something more of, a howitzer landing to the side of you, you didn't die from it, but say if it was daytime, your vision becomes as if it was nighttime, and all the sounds of gunshots and whatnot, people talking in game, are now just muffled, and you're just like, oh, I need to get out of here or I'm gonna die.
And you list things such as shell shock, maybe reduced. I think was it coloration, or even just as if it was night, and all sorts of like things in the periphery. Really cool ideas. Okay, keep going.
So then there will be a tank crew version, which would be more of a, if an artillery shell managed to land on top of it, but miraculously was able to ricochet, it would cause something similar to the same effect, but it would actually disable the crew. While the shot fortunately didn't penetrate the tank, but it would still disable its crew, and after a few seconds, the crew would slowly regain their reaction time, so that way they can get out of the zone. Because with the whole general change I proposed was to create artillery where it's supposed to meant to be more of an area of denial rather than just a giant sniper rifle than what it currently is right now in game. I just really help better for the future of Foxhole, because right now it's kind of already left to, if you already know what you're doing, and if you're new trying to get on this, it creates a form of toxicity and elitism. If you can't hit your mark, someone will want to just kick you out, so that way they can use it and do it, and it's not really a fun environment all around. And for the defending side, if the opposing side has a very good artillery team, there is no bringing your own, unless you're able to to cheese your way to destroy the enemy's FA. But almost all the time, it's always a one-sided battle, and that's never really a fun side of the fact of it.
Yeah, I think we are plucky. So I guess first of all, we are planning to do a pass on artillery probably before the end of the year. And I think that the good news is that I think a lot of the issues you raised we see as issues too, and we would like to improve the system um, in a similar, maybe not exactly as you described, but with the same type of a philosophy. We take the same issue that we would like to see more granularity, more shades of gray with the artillery game, and rather than it just being sort of you either snipe a town hall or you don't, or you snipe this building or you don't. There's no reason to ever do, for example, like a bombardment that might take place over like half an hour or even like an hour or something like that. Because right now, if that were to happen, you'd probably snipe. You already snipe your target. There's no reason to have like a, a town that's like under siege for a long time. And I think that's the sort of thing that we would want to bring to the artillery game, to have more types of effects. Like, an example is the shell shock effect that you described. I'm not saying that's something we would do specifically, but that would be a type of thing. And maybe like a suppression mechanic, so you can suppress all the garrison houses, as an example. Like that sort of more more uh, more granularity there, as opposed to just you're sniping things or you're not, right?
And that I also have one more with the effect would be one for structures calling itself under siege, which suppressing structures in general, but also preventing them from being repaired. Because I know for the longest in Foxhole, being able to repair structures has always been to me it's always been a real tacky thing. During all stages of the game when you just have a couple of the enemy team just slapping their hammers against a structure and it's basically invulnerable, and it's just like it's not really engaging at all. It just feels just frustration all around that. Don't get me wrong, like early, like let's just take day one for an example. You have like 20 guys with rifles firing at a tier 3 garrison house, and it's a slog all the way through. But one guy in the back safely with a stack of BMATs is just like hammering away, stopping all that. And it's just repairing structures has always never really been a fun concept during combat, which I could understand when it's like bringing the town hall from 1% all the way back to full HP when it's about to die. That's thrilling, but in the same breath, it's never really been a good thing.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think that a lot of what you said there, we feel very similarly about. It's difficult to change certain things when the the game is pretty mature, and the ecosystem, like, you touch one thing, you touch a million things in Foxhole is usually how things go down now. But I think the few things that we want to take a look at is probably one, we want to take a look at the repair mechanic. And two, I would like to see, like, right now there are, for example, when we see like a special ops happening, and some like partisans might go to the back line, and maybe they'll be able to satchel charge a factory or something like that. And we sort of have to, right now, the way we work around it is like, okay, well, that is too powerful, right? Or maybe it's either too powerful or it's useless, right? And what I would like to see personally, again, is more like shades of gray. Like, maybe you can't go behind lines, satchel factory, and everything's gone, but rather maybe the factory would be like disabled for a certain amount of time, right? So there's just somewhere in between those two extremes where there's more room to work, right? And I think, touching on the topic of repair, I'm actually curious about, like, I have my own thoughts about this, but I'm also curious about how players feel about the repair meta um, for tanks, right? Like players just tend to sit outside of range, and they get hit once, they back away, they repair the tanks. I will hold back on my feedback on that, but I'm really curious about how other players feel about that, whether they like that, whether they don't like it.
I mean, I'm sure that there's a lot of people that do enjoy that, because you get to keep your armor near at 100%. But also, it also with the same feeling of you get shot once, you fall back, and suddenly you're just looking at where's my tank at, and it's just gone, vanished out of nowhere to go repair and then come back. That's always been a meta with tanks of just, oh, we get hit once, let's just back up and then come back, rather than being that constant, that constant staple on the battlefield. I think just a general statement of like if you get hit once, even like by an RPG, it's just okay. Let's go back, guys. Repair, and we'll come back again, because you don't want to ever be at a disadvantage of not being at 100% during the combat.
It depends.
If
It
I-
depends.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
If I can add on to that, can you guys hear me okay?
Mhm.
I think it would be cool if we could have it up to like 80%. You can't repair everything in the field. You would have to go to like a garage, or as people want, like a field garage.
Is
They
that
can build in the field.
is that partially what the armor system does?
Yeah,
On top of the
partially
hull?
does. I agree with you, Jeffries. That's what the army system does.
But
Another point
you could even like go one up on that and implement what Brownie's saying.
Yeah, so we implemented the tank armor to try to tweak the repair meta, and what we're seeing so far is that it's largely the same, but in some cases they would actually drive back to the garage. We've thought of other things, like maybe every time you do a field repair, you can each time it's like less and less that you can repair, right? But ultimately, it might just result in the same thing. So it's an ongoing problem. And quite frankly, it's something I would like to hear more about from you guys. I feel like this is how we feel.
Mhm.
I'm interested, right? Like, do players feel like tank combat is interesting when it's like this, or would players feel like tank combat would be more interesting if it was something else?
I like to make my point about tank combat. My current issue is when every time I see a tank, what the majority of the time I see in tank combat is just tanks sit in the back, wait for infantry to push, and only kill like one or two things. That's what really tanks were not used in real life. Tanks were used mainly as like the main pushing vehicle. That's what I mainly noticed in Armor Honor Day. This was probably back in old Foxhole.
I know what you're talking about, but it's kind of an inherent dichotomy because in real war, it's life is the number one thing, whereas in Foxhole, life is meaningless because you can respawn 5 seconds later. So then material becomes the number one thing. Like you will sacrifice 100 bodies just to save one light tank, because that's what really matters. There's that inherent dichotomy, there's that inherent difference that you can't beat. Or maybe you can mechanic the hell out of that. I'm sure that causes a whole bunch of other issues. So it's very interesting. Dark, I know you veered off kind of from fire support and talking about that, but hey, I just wanted to say, because we do have to move on, this is a great write-up you did. I appreciate whenever someone keeps it very short, sweet, has a table of contents. I'm a sucker for that. As someone who talks too much and writes too much, I could write literal dissertations on like how to walk or something in Foxhole or something like that. I particularly like, again, just your implementation of the like shell shock, visual modifiers, and then kind of tweaking things to be a little less, make fire support less sniping and more just general fire suppression, which is kind of what it's closer to its real life counterpart. So I do like that aspect. And again, I'll link it in the YouTube video that we release after this so that everyone can read this, and we'll gladly see the debate on that evolve. So hey, Dark, thank you so much for joining us. Is this your first time? I think so.
Yeah, it's the first one.
Yeah, no, thank you so much, and please come back anytime. And I'd love to anything with artillery. It's nice to have. Are you Colonial or Warden, or do you switch?
Well, Loyalist Warden here. So.
Loyalist Warden. Okay, there's something about Wardens and their artillery. I think between you and Liquid Popsicle, but I'm sure there's a lot of Colony artillery guys as well. But in any case, Dark, thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Thanks for stopping by.
All right, for sure. Thank you, guys. You guys have a good one.
All right, coming up next, we have from the SIR, Big Boss Teef. You gotta say it. You gotta say it real beefy. Big Boss Teef. Welcome back to Zero Dark PressCorps. How are you?
All right, doing okay. Had some fun today. Didn't have some fun today. It is what it is.
It is. Yeah, what'd you have for us?
So I have a question that I've asked Mark before in a private DM, but I'll ask it again just because maybe he has a different answer this time. How do you feel about the current building mechanics, and do you have any ideas on how to improve on the current system or revamping, i.e. holding a mouse one and on a blueprint and staring at a number?
Yeah, I think that's so. In the ranking of things to look at, I think it's on the list of things to look at. I am unsure if it's high enough that it will be actioned this year. Um, we we took a look at a bit of that for scrapping. Um, Even though it wasn't like entirely turned upside down on its head and changed it to something else, we did break up the pacing a bit, so you're not just hitting one node many times without feedback. Now it's like it's broken up into several stages, and you get a lot more feedback from it. And I believe it does at least the touch and feel of it is a lot better. There are people on the team who really want to do something similar for the building side.
I agree. I think that system works fantastic for building because it had something similar to Rust with those mechanics, but go on.
Yeah, so I think it's still on the list to take a look at before 1.0. I'm just it's uncertain right now. It probably the next couple of months. If I have to be honest, we're probably not going to get to it, but who knows, right? Sometimes things tend to find their to sneak their way into the schedule, like the like the scrapping. And you know, I want to be clear. There are people on the team who really want to make that better. It's one of those like internal pressures that I have where people on the team are like screaming at me to make that part of the
The
game
reason
better.
why I consistently bring it up is because the trenches, we're getting stuff in, we're bringing up new bunker pieces. We're replacing the hammer with a shovel, essentially, and they both act like the same tool functionality, except the hammer can actually repair tanks and buildings, where the shovel just makes stuff. Hence why the more recent discussion of bringing it up, because this does affect trenches in itself, how they're created, how people plan bases, and if they're going to have the energy at the end of the day to finish their own creation, you won't have this half-assed thing that's sitting out in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, for sure. I feel like I mean there is room for improvement there. Absolutely.
Teef, what would your final end product be for a builder? So what would they got a hammer, and they want to place down I guess a wall. You know, how would that look like for what you envision, or something that is less tedium than what we have now?
The current system we have requires multiple people to get done stuff really fast. I think we need to have tools in place where you can have a solo builder just as build a base just as competently as a group can. Maybe may take longer, may take shorter. It really depends on how you look at it. I think having mid-game building tools will help, early game building tools, anything that can really basically give people an idea of how to plan something out. Foxhole HQ is one of those great tools that can help you plan stuff out, but it's very limited in functionality. This is going to go into my second question. A possibility of a sandbox mode. I feel it'd be easier to keep up to date versus a tutorial, and allows users to test and provide feedback significantly easier compared to the dev branch test that only lasts 3 days. The thing with the sandbox is you don't need signs, you don't need voiceovers, and you don't need to constantly revamp the home island. You just need a giant flat area and somewhere for them to spawn, and just give them a bunch of resources to figure shit out themselves. I think that's significantly easier to keep up to date versus a tutorial course, so to speak.
Certainly get over a lot of the first-time builder, first-time structure placement mistakes that everyone goes through if they're not reading reams and reams of Reddit posts that constantly have to update.
Yeah, you can significantly plan stuff out using this sandbox mode, especially if you're a builder. You can figure out how ranges work, maybe, if you decide to upgrade the map UI. Foxhole HQ does a great job at that, is providing ranges of artillery pieces and bases on how far their AI extends. I think that feature should be in the game as well, instead of relying on third-party software, which, thank God, is not malicious from the creators, because third-party software is always a toss-up. Someone could make something and steal private data or information. Some could just be genuinely helpful for the community. And we're grateful that these creators are not those type of people, and they genuinely want to help Foxhole thrive.
So, Mark, what are your thoughts on a sandbox? Like, we'll say at the tutorial or the lobby island, the home island.
Yeah, I think if we were to do something like that, I would really want it to be to feel like an integrated part of the game, as opposed to, say a separate shard or something like that. I would really want it to be more of like an extension of the home island, but much more like sandboxy and more flexibility there. With the long list of things that again we have to do over the next year, I'm uncertain whether something like that would be able to make it into the schedule. But I like the idea, and I think something in lieu of that, perhaps if there isn't a sandbox type mode, I think something that would be interesting, and then the people on the team have also been asking about this too, is some sort of a planning tool in the game itself that lets you, for example, place down sort of an outline sketch of what you want your bunker base to be like, and then after you just have to kind of like fill it in, right? That sort of tool, I know there's a lot of interest on the team for that, and so who knows? That's something else that we could take a look at.
Mark Foot, are you familiar with Fortify, the third-party software that was actually endorsed by the official development team and then became its own software on Steam that people can purchase and use?
No, I haven't. This is for what game? Sorry?
For Rust.
Oh,
it's it's a building pre-planning tool that people can make and design stuff. Then they can save codes in it and then import it onto servers and stuff. It shows you the resource cost of the building, shows you what items you can place where. It'll show you the radius of like a toolbox and what you can build within it. That'll keep stuff locked and ownership to you.
Oh, that's interesting. I played Rust before several times, but I didn't know this tool existed. That's neat.
I can provide a link for you in DMs later if you'd like, just so you can take a look at it or eyeball it.
Yeah.
Teef, to your earlier suggestion about how you kind of want to remove having multiple people be involved in building, and just kind of keep it to one person. Correct me if I've mischaracterized that, but I guess to play devil's advocate, wouldn't that discourage teamwork?
Here's the thing. Teamwork is great when you have a team to support you, but if you're trying your best to get the teamwork to happen, it requires the team to actually help you. Like, there's no I in team. Everyone has to be a part of this cog in the machine. But if the machine just doesn't want to run, you can't force it to run. You'll just end up making people aggravated or piss people off. Sometimes you're playing at 2 to 3 a.m. and it's low population hours, but you're in Australia or something and it's like middle of the day. There's not a lot of people going on and not a lot of people want to spend their time building. Having tools to help out the solo player helps people who, can't simply just find help, that they want to do stuff. Or maybe they have this vision of a base that other people can't really comprehend or understand, and they sort of need to figure out and do it themselves.
Yeah, as we have members of our core that they're from the Philippines, they're from Australia, and then it's like, hey, it's time to finally get some Foxhole in. Hey, there's like only 200 people online because it's like 6 a.m. or something on the other side of the planet. So they can definitely relate to you there. That's interesting because they're anytime you bring respite for the solo player. That's something big for the ecosystem. So yeah.
I have a third question, and it's kind of long.
Sure, we'll end it with that.
Okay, so Mark, I don't want you to take any offense to this, but it's not an insult either. I hold the opinion that the game's foundation isn't strong enough yet for asymmetrical combat. We have a bunch of legacy bugs I feel should be addressed, and the current bugs from the new driving mechanics and odd server issues we get here and there are becoming more frequent. A lot of balancing in Foxhole has become a lot more complicated now because feedback is being used as biased, one side having an advantage trying to shut down discussion of the other side's feedback. Asymmetrical balancing is just a nightmare in my opinion, when map balancing and faction placement has always been a heated discussion. Now we have more stuff for people to get mad about. I don't think we should have this until the foundation is solid enough to support it. Like, the upgrade system works, but it's flawed in a lot of areas. Driving needs help, map balancing needs help. I feel farming and the fuel system is in a better position compared to before, and that's a lot of progress, in my opinion. The artillery system is easy, but it's primitive and requires math for some people to use. It's hard to do math on the fly, and it creates a barrier to entry to using one of the most powerful tools in the game. We shouldn't be using third-party tools for this. We're lucky the creator of these tools isn't malicious. Foxhole HQ has some features I think should be a part of that game. I already mentioned that.
Yeah, these were a lot of worries that were expressed as soon as a lot of the asymmetry was revealed a couple months back. So there's some valid thought there. Mark, what are your what's your response to that? I know we've already crossed the threshold, but what do you think about that?
One second.
Uh-huh.
I'm glad that this third-party software exists, but it's significantly harder for a player to find it because Foxhole relies on second-hand information and being told from others. Not a lot of people are going to go out and explore and find these tools on their own to improve their own gameplay. Them knowing about an artillery calculator could have contributed greatly to a war months ago. You know what I mean? I feel this stuff should be a part of the game as it is, and we shouldn't keep relying on the community to make software for the game. No,
Actually,
it's an indie studio.
Going off of that,
so we get that.
There's a fantastic tool called Logiways. And as far as I know, it's not malicious, but it's literally a GPS. It's like a Yahoo Maps. You can plan your route. Just put any 2 endpoints from town to town, and they'll show you the fastest possible route. It's pretty cool.
That's amazing.
Logiways. Look up Logiways.
That sounds so goofy, but awesome at the same time. All right, I'm done. Go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, no, I think that's and I guess first of all, no, I don't take offense. But I think to sort of find some common ground in there, I do feel that some of the foundational stuff that you're talking about is definitely going to be a bigger focus between now and 1.0. Much of what we've done in the last couple of years is almost the opposite. Like, we're almost constantly like destabilizing the game, not on purpose, but because in order to find the answer to certain gameplay questions, we kind of have to do that, and we knew every time there would be like backlash, right? We conscientiously knew if we change this big system, there's going to be a lot of friction, but we feel like the short-term pain of that it's going to be worthwhile in the long run after 1.0, when thousands of players are going to be like enjoying the game. They're going to reap the benefits of that. Even in the meantime, we have to sort of like endure a lot of this very valid feedback of why did you break this part of the game? This was a stupid decision. Like, who was so dumb to think about this? It's all valid, and we knew, and we sort of knew, like, yeah, this is what's going to happen. So to go back to that, to go back to the foundational part, I do agree that there's a bunch of foundational stuff that is lacking and needs improvement, and I think this is an area that we're definitely gonna be focusing on. The asymmetric side, I think that's a bit too long of a conversation to be having right now. Yeah. So maybe we'll set that one aside for now.
It's also a moot point because we're already kind of here with asymmetry, but certainly going forward, it'll be interesting just to hit on that foundational features.
Already here, and the thing is, you can't really exactly rip this mechanic out, especially if it is causing problems. We just sort of have to live with it now, the fact that it's here. So hopefully we can mitigate some of the damage and discussion that happens from asymmetry, because everyone likes their toys. You don't fuck with their toys.
Yeah, Teef. Well, did you have anything else for us here? I got some really good questions from you tonight.
It was just those three.
Yeah. Hey, Teef. Thank you so much for stopping by. Thank you for your. Did you write those down? beforehand, or did you just think about them?
I wrote them down for last time, and then I just retyped them up while I was in the caller queue from pure memory.
Mm-hmm. No, hey, I appreciate it. Anyone who writes down their stuff, I actually really, it's a compliment because that means you're taking this seriously. On the other hand, those who just like to spit stuff out from their mind, who like to come out here with like, I don't know, what's up with you guys? I appreciate those too. So it's all over the place. But Teef, thank you so much for your awesome questions. Have a good one.
Have a good.
All right, all right. Hey, Brownie, I noticed you were in the queue. Did you want to ask a question?
Oh yeah, there was someone who wanted to ask a question. He wanted me to read it out for him.
Oh, well, hold on, hold on.
Question
Was
from
this
Mark
is
Foot.
is
Oh,
this
I'm
is
sorry.
this the one from MREBoy?
Yes.
We can get to that one once he hits the queue. Once we can reach
Okay.
him in the queue.
Sounds good.
Did you have one personally?
Ooh, me? Oh no, I was gonna do it for him.
Gotcha. All right,
yeah,
then
that
you know
works.
we'll just move on to Troll Dad. Troll Dad, welcome back to Zero Dark PressCorps.
Hey, how you guys doing?
Doing well, doing well. What'd you have for us here tonight?
I just had a couple questions, some that were brought up in a previous discussion with some of the Psalm people, and then one suggestion that I remember I posted in, what was it, FOD? It was asking about, like, what was it, are we going to see more, more industrial settings in Foxhole? Because I remember I suggested that, there could be a lot of areas that could be, there's a lot of things you could do into some areas, like, say, have Umbral Wildwood have like a logging area.
Is this just aesthetically speaking? Just
Yeah,
kind of like
like just
settings?
aesthetic. Yeah, just for like settings. And
Was
stuff
there a
like
dev
that.
blog, like either 2 or 3 dev blogs ago, where you guys were hinting, Mark, at like more industrial looking settings, if I remember correctly?
Yeah, we actually added. It kind of pains me to hear that in a way because we did add in update 37.
Well, hold on. Where did you add it?
To the big towns of the world, so Blemish, Abandoned Ward, Saltbrook, and Jade Cove and such
Well,
like
when
that.
the shells are flying, it's hard to notice some of these fine details.
Yeah, we added a bunch. Yeah, sorry, I'll let you finish.
No, I mean, like I was actually I fought in these industrial zones, and they look really nice. And I'm not gonna lie to you that they look beautiful in their own in their areas. But I'm wondering if, like, are you guys planning to like make any more of these settings, or just like different settings in different areas, so to speak?
Yeah, I think we have this long list of environmental props is what we call it, that we want to get done over the next year, and we tend to chip away at those things when we're planning the big stuff. When we're at the sort of point in the pipeline where the art team has some spare time, they'll go into that list and they'll start working on it. Like recently, um, we worked on this. It was like an abandoned a bomb shelter, right? And this is I'm probably spoiling too much, and probably Matt's gonna be mad when he finds out that I talked about this. But as an example of a kind of thing that we would work on to sort of add more character to the world, and I think uh, things things like you mentioned there are things that we might be interested in. I don't know if we'd do those exact things, but I think generally, yes, more varied types of environments are on the table.
All right, and then I think the last thing I just want to ask is, like, are we gonna see more BMS like vehicles? Because I think
What is BMS?
I think it was the utility vehicles, like the flatbed truck, the harvester.
It's real quick. Like it's like the people who make like the more neutral looking vehicles in like the lore. So think it like the CVs and stuff.
What were the letters? Was it VMS?
No,
BMS. I think it was BMS.
I'm getting game real quick so I can get the name real quick.
But I was
It's
wondering.
BMS. It's BMS. I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, it's fine. I was just wondering because, like, there was like a discussion in the Psalm voice chat about how if there was gonna be like any BMS type like modifications, say like I don't know, like steam shovels or different types of flatbed trucks geared for more specific off-road, on-road use, stuff like that. I just want to know your input on that.
Yeah, I think we are interested in um, both that and probably uh, more logi vehicles. Maybe let me leave that. Maybe let me leave it at that. Is that there's been so much focus on um, varied, like uh, very combat vehicles. I know we did do a lot of truck variations, but I think there's other type of logi tools that we want to put out there, right? Sort of things that players have been asking for, but the answer, like, it's so often that players would ask for something, and we don't want to put it in because we don't want there to be like a direct answer to it, right? Like we're not. It's not interesting to us when there's simply a direct solution for something that players just have to go through a step. Um, that probably doesn't make sense, but like what I'm trying to say is,
Like a
for
straight
example,
upgrade as opposed to something interesting.
exactly, that's exactly it, right?
Like, okay, now we have to go through this to get to the thing that we realize. So it's something that can be less gamified and less like meta, where you
That's
have to
right.
do this, and something more like a meaningful choice.
And now with the tech tree, it does open up that possibility, right? Because we can provide something that would otherwise be almost like a direct upgrade. But then now you might be contending between choosing between that and something else, right? Like in like a really wild example, maybe not so wild, but an example of that would be something like a concrete truck, right? Like players have been asking for that for so long, but that kind of like defeats some of the purpose behind the concrete mechanics. And if you had that, it would it would sort of like it would just be something that everyone would do, right? But now we can do something like, well, you could choose the concrete truck, which would be huge, but you'll be giving up something else, right? I think something like that would be really interesting to do.
Yeah.
Not saying there's going to be a concrete truck. I'm just using that as an example.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's all the questions I had. Thank you, Mark, for the.
Real quick. When I heard concrete truck, I automatically thought about the concrete tank that the Soviet Union made during World War II.
Oh, I know what he's talking about. It's like what the T-34 with like cinder blocks in front of it. Yeah. But yeah, as I said, that was all the questions I had. Thank you for having me on PressCorps After Dark.
Yeah, hey, Cholda, thank you so much.
Yep.
All right, coming up next, we have Thramoun. I hope I said that right. Thramoun of the GE outfit, right? Thramoun, did I say that right?
Close enough.
How do I say it, just for future reference?
Thramoun. It's the best way to pronounce it.
Okay.
Like a double O, I guess.
Gotcha. Yeah. No, that's great. Hey, what'd you have for us tonight? Welcome back to Zero Dark PressCorps.
All right. I only really came here with one point that I wanted to bring up to Mark. I've been doing some frontline infantry combat lately, and after a while I noticed it gets kind of stale. I mean, frontlines in trenches do tend to get kind of stale, but I mean stale from a gameplay perspective as well. And I've been thinking about it, and one reason I came up with why that could be the way that structures, or rather the destruction of structures works. Because I've noticed there's all these cool bunker bases now, right? And these bunker bases, I would love to fight at them because that would be really cool. But the problem is, when the infantry gets to those bases, they're either full of AI, so you can't get in them, or they're destroyed, and the husk is basically just a flat plane. So my question to you, Mark, was, is this something that you think should be addressed before 1.0, or is it even planned?
Yeah, I mean, I think in general, trenches still need more work. There's a lot more that we want to do with trenches and the bunker system. I think foundationally, everything is there on that front. But in terms of making it more interesting, I think there's a lot more work to be done still, and we'll probably do a little bit of that stuff this year. I think we have tried to break up some of the monotony around those front lines. Like I think the removal of the gun nests was a step in that direction, because we didn't remove them just to remove them. We removed them to pave the way for new things moving forward. So I I mean, in terms of like maybe to get a more direct um, answer there to that part about getting into the trench, uh, that part is challenging, because if like one big difficulty was getting players to use the trenches and to make sure they don't get used against you, right? So the game design question there is, how do you get more interesting combat in the trenches without players not wanting to use them, because it's kind of like, if it's too inviting for that sort of thing.
That's such a
Let me just put it, right?
catch-22. That's
Yes.
it's so it's so difficult because for the longest time, or rather, people love the fantasy, the war fantasy of being in the trenches, literally having trenches, and how that plays out in Foxhole is awesome, because you have this big war. You have where this expansive map. The war lasts for up to 3 weeks, hopefully more, and whatever. But then when you actually, like, day by day, hour by hour, trenches, you realize, are literally the most monotonous thing you could, like its real life counterpart. Trench warfare was the, like, most monotonous, grueling thing possible. It's not interesting at all. So then, like, how do you make that interesting from a gameplay perspective when the whole point is that trench warfare is supposed to be the grindiest possible thing ever invented in the history of human warfare? So I guess I'll pivot to, like, kind of a philosophical thing, Thramoun. With you mentioned that things do get stale on the battlefield, particularly when things are built up. Attacks are just failing over and over again. And actually, this might be tossed to Mark as well. And I do agree that I do feel that fatigue sometimes. Um, I guess what can be done to make that more interesting without penalizing failure? Does that make sense? Because like, failure is good sometimes, particularly in a sandbox, because not everything can work, right? Otherwise, because not every strategy is supposed to work. You are supposed to fail. But how do you mitigate that? How do you? I don't know. I'm being kind of vague with my question, but do you get what I'm asking?
Was that a question to me or to Mark?
You know what? Let's go to Mark with that then. more philosophical thing there.
Yeah, it it's always like, if the question is how do you deal with the conflicting goal of, were you trying to say that there's a conflicting goal there of a player trying to make some sort of progress, but then there has to be like failure there? Is that sort of
Yes, let's go with that, because I threw in like 3 questions there. Let's go with that one.
Yeah, that is that's a very hard
Extremely
problem,
hard.
and it can even be expanded out into an even larger question of like, all the progress that one side in the war makes is negative progress for the other side, right? And the sort of classic thing that we tear our hair out all the time about is that um, the game is always broken for half the player base, right? It's sort of
Right.
what we just sort of have learned to expect, that if you build this type of game, that's just what you're going to be left with.
How do you make losing fun? Let's frame it like that. Going way out there now. How do you make losing fun? Because one side has to lose, and if this is an open sandbox where consequences matter and things, you have a battle tank and you spend so much time on this, and then you lose it. You lose the whole region. You lose the whole war. How do you make that fun for 50% of the populace?
I think it's very hard to make it fun for 50%, and there's definitely a non-trivial sized group of players that will just, at the first sign of trouble, they're just gonna like GG out of the war, right?
Right.
Because they're just there to win. They're not there to make a last stand and have fun. But I think that one area that we have seen we have made strides in is that there is a bit more room for these more fun like last stands. Um, but I think by building out, just simply building out a bunker base, if you think about that player who sits in the back line and builds out this massive bunker base, if it never gets tested, that's not very fun. So losing is almost fun from that standpoint. I think, though, the ultimate solution for this, but it's very hard to do it in a way that doesn't feel forced or like artificial, would be like the beach landing that happened at the very end of the last war that you were talking about earlier.
Yeah, the Port of Rhyme, the
Um,
Kali raid of the Port of Rhyme.
Exactly. The Port of Rhyme landing was sort of this like, okay, the Colonials lost, but they were able to sort of do this last sort of like victory, and like they went out, like they went out like on a high note, right? That's sort of the ultimate. If that can kind of happen every war, that'd be cool. But then you also are left with, if it happened every war, it wouldn't be special anymore, and it would feel forced, right? So, maybe I'll stop there.
If I may interject, one thing I quite like losing, right? Let's say we're being pushed back hard as the colonials are now. There's still that thing, there's that hope you might still win, you know? There's always that hope that you might push the enemy back and win the war. I also think there's some enjoyment in that.
Yeah, it's definitely the case. 100% though, the one thing that we're very convinced on is that your team's morale is by far the number one factor in who wins the war ultimately. Like once your morale is shattered, that's the finishing blow. It's not even tanks or anything like that. It's morale, like 100%.
Any war theorist will know that. It's all about the spirit
Yes.
de corps, esprit de corps, whatever.
Morale is everything.
But yeah, I'm sorry, Thramoun, did I throw off your question there? I know we got philosophical.
Yeah, it was a very interesting discussion. I would like to get back into the
Go ahead.
details again, though. Especially the thing Mark mentioned with the problem of trenches being most of the time more hurtful than useful. Two things that came to my head was one, they kind of lack their niche right now, because whatever you wanted to accomplish, something else will always accomplish it better than trenches right now. And the second one is one of the best ways I found people use to make trenches less neutral, I guess, is to put sandbag walls behind them. So if the trench gets taken, the colonials, in my case, since I'm warden, can't shoot back at what you're building behind it. So probably that can be solved by just adding more elaborate trench upgrades. On another note, regarding the bunkers, I feel like one of the problems with building bunkers is that more often than not, the big ass bunker you build, before it really gets used, it's gonna be either killed by artillery or by tanks while it's probably not being properly defended. And I don't have a solution for that, but what I was thinking is if there was a way to maybe make bunkers neutral somehow with less effort than it would be to kill them, maybe even be able to rebuild them and capture them somehow, they would probably be a lot more fun, since then first of all you could actually fight in them when after you've killed all the AI defenses, and second of all you could actually take that bunker then and you have actually gained something for your team, and third of all, if the enemy team later takes that bunker back, of course it's still there, it's still the bunker they built.
Yeah, making bunkers neutral would probably be a bit difficult right now, but just because of the way that it's implemented. But yeah,
Right.
I mean, there's possibilities there, right? 100%.
That was actually one of my follow-up questions. How difficult would it be to make it so the AI buildings could maybe not be destroyed, but separately disabled from actually destroying the bunkers. Let's say you have like a rifle garrison on a bunker, and that has its own little HP pool, and if you shoot it enough, it'll just go offline basically until it's repaired.
So you're saying separating the AI structure from the bunker. Is that the question?
I mean, not directly separating, but just a way to disable them so that the AI doesn't work and you can't get in them anymore. So you can actually go in the bunker.
Sort of like a permanent suppression, like just kind of like take it offline and then you can like get inside.
Yeah, basically.
Right. Well, would the intention be so that you can get into that garrison and you can see inside it and everything, or is it more just so that it's offline?
Well, what I was thinking is that the garrison itself would basically just be a dead bunker structure that you can't get in, but it would open up the rest of the bunker, and of course, if you destroy all the garrison, maybe you could even repair them afterwards, so they're now your garrison, right?
So I get what you're saying. Like the thing you're trying to get at is that you want there to be scenarios where you're fighting inside a bunker network.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. That's one thing I would really like to see. And
yeah.
Probably also everyone who has ever built a really awesome bunker.
Right. No, that's an interesting question, and we actually, I'll be honest on that one. We actually haven't thought too much about it, so it would be, it's sort of like would be a new question. I think we've been focused so much on like making these things more useful, and I think to some degree we've succeeded over the last update because they're definitely used way more now than they were in the months prior. But in terms of the combat in the bunkers, it's an interesting question, and I'll be honest, we haven't focused too much attention on that. So maybe it's something we can think more about in the future.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Maybe it'll be worth considering it more from now on.
Thramoun, thank you so much for your awesome questions. Thramoun of Guerrilla Engineering, is that correct? GE.
That is correct.
You guys if I remember, you guys specialized in kind of rapid building, right? Was that one of your MOs, or did it change?
Originally, nowadays it's mostly partisan ops, though we do tank combat as well. It's really just whatever shows up.
A little less engineering, a little more guerrilla, a lot more guerrilla.
Yeah, whatever is on Pocket's mind, basically, on that day.
Gotcha. Hey, Thramoun, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me on.
All right, coming up next, I guess, Spots, you're in the queue. Do you have a question for Mark?
Yeah. This is more of a first things first. This is more of a two-pronged suggestion relay around tank combat. I already pulled out my notes for one of my ideas I mentioned in an earlier Zero Dark, but I didn't have time to talk to Markfoot about. First things first, I really want to see both factions have their own unique calibers for their tank guns, so that when you capture an enemy tank, you actually have to bring it back, and then you have to do like the full repair. But instead of fully repair the tank, you modify the tank to make it work with your faction ammunition caliber.
I saw a similar suggestion where someone was saying, you have to bring it back. I forget where I read this, but I have to bring it back because this is kind of addressing the problem with, okay, you just gassed out a battle tank, so now the enemy can literally take a wrench, unlock it, and then they now have a freaking battle tank, and it's just it's like a snowball that gets bigger and bigger, and it's like, well, now what? So it's kind of like the making your steamroll worse.
It's like you have to actually install a new gun onto it. Something like there's a really good example in another game, War Thunder, the KV-1C 75R. It's basically it's a KV-1 but with a German gun on it. If I cut off, I was just closing out Foxhole, but it was like it's a captured KV-1, but it has a German cupola, and the main gun is a 75mm gun on it instead of the normal 76. But this is not like my main suggestion. Another sub suggestion I have is, when a tank dies on the battlefield, instead of its husk despawning, I want it to be remaining on the battlefield as like a cover. So that infantry can use it as cover, and you can, when the battle's over and you push them back, or the enemy push you back, or you push them back, you can scrap the vehicle for components and you can refine them down, like a recycling system in game. That's something I like. Recycling in the game will actually make tanks a little bit more. Like you can let them couple tanks die because you can just recycle them.
Yeah, Mark, what are your thoughts on that? Which is, one faction able to immediately use the other faction's everything once they capture it.
Right. So in terms of being able to just use it right away, I don't think we've necessarily had a huge problem with that. From the gameplay standpoint, I think in terms of solving that problem with unique calibers, it's interesting that that's brought up because we recently had a huge conversation internally about that, and it's always this big issue that comes up because um, there's a couple of problems with a lot of calibers. One is you got a UI problem, right? Like how many types of ammo are you going to put in that stockpile? How many types of ammo are going to show up in the map tooltip? So this is more of like the more practical UI type of issue. And then the second of all, there's like a visual design issue that we always tend to bump into, is like how many ways can you actually represent a shell or or like a bullet, and if you, so those are the two problems, or rather the barriers that we tend to run into. So we sort of, what we're trying to do right now is trying to get down to some sane roadmap for calibers so that we're not always going to run into this problem. Like we're not going to run into the problem of in 2 years we're going to have 100 different calibers, and Logi is going to go insane having to make 100 different things, and the UI is going to be completely bloated. So I think if there's a solution to this, it probably wouldn't be that. But to hop to that second question that you posed with the sort of salvaging slash using for cover slash reverse engineering um, type of concept, I think that's always an idea that has excited us. It's never quite been high enough priority on the list of things for us to action yet. But it's always showed up. It's so deep in the theme of the game, especially with things like the relic tanks, that we really would we find it exciting, right? Like just a tank husk there, and maybe you have to reclaim it with a crane or something, and then you bring it back, and either you salvage it into parts, or maybe you reverse engineering it, and then that gives you some sort of tech bonus or something of that sort. Right.
About the reverse engineering idea, when you reverse engineer it might just give you iron that you so take for example, it's the how much depending on what tier it is, you can bring it back, salvage it for half of the iron cost of what tier that vehicle is.
Yeah, that's exactly the kind of thing that we thought of before, and it also would fit nicely into the framework of, well, now Logi has a reason to bring something back from the front, right?
Yeah, and it's way better than the older system that you had, where it was you could check gamble for relics. It was like the prototype before the current tech system. Kind of interesting. I really want Logi to bring something back from the front. But this is not my main juicy suggestion. My main juicy suggestion is a new vehicle idea I came up with.
Oof. Do you have it? Do you have a write up on it?
I don't. I have it currently on notes. I need to write it up.
Oh, okay.
It's a case-made BT tank destroyer for the Colonial faction. Because what I've witnessed in the current patches is Colonials have a major lack of AT. The only two AT are the RPG LUV, which is mediocre at best, but it's really terrible most of the time. Johansen can comment on that. We have witnessed that firsthand.
Yeah. Hey, Mark, do you have any? What was the balance of giving the Wardens, on top of their souped up armored vehicles, giving them a distinct AT destroyer on a half track, and not giving the Colonials one? What was the balance there?
Yeah,
What were you thinking? No, I'm just...
So that is a really long conversation that
Yeah, it's okay.
involves Julian and Max and like numerous meetings. It was literally like weeks of like meetings on we basically came up with this where we start with these things. We actually um often when we come to like build out a new system like this, um we when we're adding in new content, like the things we're going to add moving forward to both the tech trees, a lot of the focus is on the game balance side. Like, what are we adding to try to balance the game? And we're also so that becomes more of like the leading hand. But when we come up with a new system, like the trench system or like the vehicle variant system, we usually start with the question: what is the most like exciting thing? Like, what feels like it would be like a real thing in a war? And we don't even think like we don't start when it comes to again designing the whole system. We don't start with like, well, what are the game mechanics that we want to add in? We always start with what's the most exciting? Like let's not worry about the balance. This is going to trigger tons of people, right? What I'm about to say, but we don't even start with let's start with worrying about all the balance and all the nuances of the game mechanics. We just simply say what is the most exciting thing, right? And like what feels like it would fit into this world? What would it feel like would be a colonial thing? What would the colonials actually build in this war? What would the wardens actually build? And then from there, we generate like a brainstorm list, huge list that's like twice the size of what we have right now in game, probably like 3 times. And then from there, we start like a filtering process, and then we slowly get to like the game balance, and then we get to like the game mechanics, and then eventually, we come up with something that we would feel like is a starting point on the balance side. Now, moving forward, I want to emphasize this. I want to be super clear because people are going to walk away being like, Mark doesn't care about like game balance, which is completely not true, right? But that base, we do care about the game balance a lot. And then moving forward, as we add new things, we're also going to be caring about that much more, right? But in terms of the process, it's the same for the trenches. Exactly the same thing. We didn't start with like, well, what are the game mechanics that we want? We literally started with like, how do we picture like trench warfare to be in this game? And we actually start with lots of like photo references, lots of like brainstorming about, hey, wouldn't it be cool? That's always the leading question, right? And we actually learned this a long time ago as a studio because there was a point in time in our studio where we almost became way too like practical, and we a lot of leading questions was like what's reasonable, what's practical, what should we do, which is a natural way to think, right? Like you want to be reasonable, you want to be practical, but what we learned a long time ago that the the very philosophy that made Foxhole happen, that made this game happen, was leading with the question, what is the most exciting thing, what's possible, and that philosophy, it applies to everything, including how we think about the vehicle variants. So that's my super long answer.
Oh, hey, I like that. But Spots, if you are you gonna go into like here's my vehicle idea kind of thing?
Yeah, I just want to discuss it real quick. It's a case-made BT tank destroyer. First, its main gun, in my opinion, should be 115 millimeter gun, which is the biggest gun in the Foxhole game, except for storm cannon stuff. But like the biggest gun, like actual tank gun, has a crew of 5, a gunner, driver, engineer, loader, and commander. And one of the upsides is we can one shot most tanks because it's a 115 millimeter gun that will do a lot of damage. It has a great frontal armor and has a range. I thought 45. I might decrease it down to 40 for balancing sakes, but it has a couple of downsides. Weak slide slash rear armor. That's one of its major downsides. It can be easily attacked from the side and rear. You don't want to get flanked because your main gun is pointing forwards and your sides are weak.
So it's a glass cannon kind of thing.
As well as that, it has a long reload. So it has a long reload due to the fact that it's a 115mm gun. That means it's going to take a bit long time to reload. As well as that, it needs a crew of 4 to work. It needs the engineer and loader, because the engineer loads the back part of the shell and the loader loads the front part of the shell.
Mm-hmm. Hey,
So
Spots,
like a
Spots,
two-step-
I think you're getting into the weeds of like how this thing operates. Why don't you do a write-up and share that on the Reddit? Because I know there's a lot of detail here that will probably completely,
Yeah,
just,
as
go
well as
right
that
over.
has a limited turret rotation because it's a case-made tank destroyer. Can aim only in front of it.
So yeah, hey,
Which is
I think we'll move on to another caller here. We have members of the Warden Navy. Oh, here we go.
Oh, hey.
Oh boy, party gets started.
I'm moving the tank bat, man. Alright, got it.
Alright,
Hey
guys, how's it going this evening?
Going well, going well.
Hey,
How are you?
VonKlaus.
Good.
Well, it's been an exciting war. Back again. Still going strong. First question. I know I heard people asking about artillery. I know one thing I normally see is the FA is very difficult to use, especially for new players. Doesn't necessarily fire exactly where you're going to shoot because of differences in terrain height. And I was thinking, I know you have artillery update coming out, but an artillery, just like an FA shrapnel shell, would probably be a great way to make a cheaper type of ammo that newer players could use to get to know the FA a little better, to work themselves up to maybe use the more expensive shells. I know one big thing is it's like an FA almost costs a lot more than most tanks. So once you lose them, it's really demoralizing and they're very easy to lose. So maybe if there was like something that drove the cost down a little bit for new players, that they could shoot at infantry or lighter targets and not have to worry about out of ammo, can't get any more.
Let me actually preface that question because this kind of goes into that, as well as the suggestion from our first caller, Dark Lord Light. I think I misnamed that, but regardless, Mark, is there supposed to be a specific niche or like purpose for the mortar, the field artillery piece, the howitzer, and the gunboat? Are they supposed to serve specific niches, like anti building, anti infantry? Is that their stated purpose, or is that flexible?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of this is going to change, right? But right now, yeah, the field artillery and a lot of this stretches like way back in the game. So this is not necessarily how we want things to be now or moving forward. This is just what they were like 1, 2, 3 years ago
Right.
when they were first made, right? But the field artillery was supposed to be an anti-structure weapon at the very beginning, sort of like almost like a long range like sniper type of artillery. The howitzer was interesting because when we first made it, we designed it to be more of an anti-infantry structure. I know that's not exactly how it ended up turning out for a while, and it's gone through several changes. At one point, it was actually also pretty effective at sniping structures. Now it's much harder. It's still possible, but you need a lot of shells to make it happen, so it's not the best way to do it anymore. And the gunboats were made originally. This was probably like 2 years ago, because we were having issues with making the beach landing stick a lot more than now. I know it's still kind of a tough thing to pull off, but back then it was like way harder because for a variety of reasons, player would be able to build foxholes right on the beach, and we needed something to be able to clear out those structures before landing. So those were the original purposes of those three weapons. Now, in terms of answering the question of that the new player and it being difficult for them to use something like a field artillery, rather than solving that with more ammo types, which is actually something we're starting to push away from. Um, we experimented with it a little bit, but I think what the direction that we would like to go in rather is to provide more types of artillery, more types of like field weapons. So maybe there is a version of a field weapon or a field artillery type thing that is a lower tier weapon that isn't going to cost, as you were saying, as much as it does. And if a new player were to use this lower tier version, it wouldn't be such a loss, right?
Well, that's pretty exciting. I like to hear that. So, from that comment, can I assume that the tank special ammo probably isn't something that's coming back either?
Yeah, it's probably not going to be coming back. Again, something that we also want to do, just to touch upon that a bit, is there is a damage type system that is in the game, but it's kind of hidden from. It's not explicitly um, shown to players, but there are different damage types, and there are different mitigation types. So, like a tank might be able to mitigate one type of a damage type, um, but it won't be able to mitigate another one as well, right? But all this stuff is kind of like hidden under the hood. It's been in there for 3 years, but something we're looking into, and can't talk too much about it because it's still kind of in flux, it's still in the works. But we want to start exposing some of that stuff a bit more, so that players will be able to make a more conscientious choice with these things, and it'll be so. What one possible way that this might be implemented in the future would be the ammo type actually states, okay, this is a whatever millimeter shell. It deals such and such type of damage. So at least now okay, there are these differentiating types, and then different vehicles will be able to use. Will probably be assigned to each one of these types, to sort of be able to characterize a tank as like an anti-tank tank or an anti-structure tank or something of that sort. So.
Yeah, that sounds nice. I noticed that you named like all the shell types from from howitzer shell. You gave it a millimeter size, and that definitely helped people delivering the light arty shells to the middle of like a land fob. Like it made it much more clear to new players. I could just see because I don't see like in the middle of nowhere Deadlands fob having like 200 gunboat shells anymore. So that definitely helped the differentiating of the calibers and sizes, at least in that regard. So I'm sure in everything else that will help. Next question I had was towards this war. What have you guys thought compared to last war? I've thought it's been really dynamic and interesting. Again, with the tech tree changes, and it really feels like the title of your update, like arms race, because there was times where the wardens were kind of behind in the tech tree, and then they kind of now, I guess, like right now, they kind of ahead because they got tanks like maybe a couple hours before. So I just wanted to see what your guys' thoughts were, how everything's playing out.
Yeah, I mean, I think there is one thing that I do want to say is that we still feel like the tech tree needs more. It just needs to be like filled out more at this point. Um, it's still quite we we did our best to get that feeling of choice, and so that each war can feel slightly different, but we're definitely feeling a bit stretched on that. um, the one thing I think the thing that I do like seeing is that some of the vehicles that we're seeing in this war right now, we just completely didn't even see in the last war. I think, or the time and place that they were introduced into the war has changed. But I do want to say that it's still this is always a tough thing because for players it feels like we know everything now. We need to change everything now. For us, we like watching things. We like seeing how things unfold over wars. But we do hear the urgency on sort of like it's tough. We have to reconcile the urgency that the players have with us just wanting to see more things first before making changes. So I think that this second war is showing us more, and we're just gonna have to continue to like bounce things. I think this next update is actually a lot closer than you guys think. So there's gonna be more changes, and we're just gonna continue rolling with it, right? Hopefully, the next war is gonna feel slightly different, and hopefully, the war after that is gonna feel slightly different, right?
I will say that the tech part still feels like kind of like a grind, and maybe when you guys have more vehicles to fill it out, then maybe the speed can speed up towards like so that you're getting like one tech a day at least or something like that, so you feel the progression a little more. Because now that right now, at least this war, there was like periods where there was like 2 to 3 days where we didn't get a tech, so it was like really kind of slow those days compared to like a day like today where there's both sides got tanks and the whole front line's a lot more fluid.
Yeah, the progression, I agree 100% that it needs to be smoother. There's some of the jumps are a bit too high, I think. Like you need to really get a lot of parts just to get one prototype, and it is a bit slower progress at certain parts of the war that we'd like. But again, a part of that is a symptom of we just need to build out the tech tree more, and some of these issues will just naturally fix themselves over time. But yeah, no, I agree with that part.
I got a question. There were reports of you guys like participating in like tons of naval invasions, like the ones in Weathered and stuff like that. Were you guys there for those?
Sorry, you were saying there were reports that we what?
You guys, the developer team.
We weren't. We have done naval operations, but we weren't part of the big
the Port of Rhyme one.
Yeah, no, we weren't. I mean, I was watching it once we caught wind. Like once we noticed there was a huge force there, I went in as like a developer and I wanted to see what was going on there, but I didn't participate in it. No.
Has there been any particular moment this war where you guys tuned in or whatever you found interesting or whatever that maybe nobody else would?
Were there any from the Warden Navy that maybe you noticed, Mark?
Let me see. Not from the Warden. Sorry, I don't want to lie. I haven't seen anything specific. I watched a lot of the Silverhand just was introduced this morning, so we spent a lot of time watching that for sure. I mean,
so that part was at least enjoyable. That was watching the Silverhands in action. I mean, they're incredible to maneuver and drive. They're really a fun vehicle.
They're pretty nice.
Everybody that's used them has really enjoyed it.
Yeah, the one thing that we were really trying to get a handle on was how, because we're getting a lot of reports of like tank spam at the end of the last war, and some reports that they were difficult for infantry to deal with. So we wanted to take a look at some of that. So I was really glad we got a chance. This was sort of because we got that feedback at the end of the last war. This morning was really the first time we were able to go in there and be like, hey, we want to see how bad it might be, right? So to say. So we were able to take a look at some of that and see what the state of like infantry versus tanks are, how much truth there is to the tank spam feedback and such like that.
See, I fight infantry a lot, and I fight tanks a lot as infantry, and I can tell you from a fact that sticky bombs and AT rifles are probably the two most effective weapons against tanks. It's a mix between AT rifle and stickies because they're both very they have their niches. The RPG I find the most useless though. Interestingly enough. It ricochets like 50% of the time, so yeah.
Yeah.
Do you gentlemen have any other questions for us? I'm assuming you route all the questions to Mint and VonKlaus, or I guess not. We'll see.
No, we just kind of just go on the fly.
Oh, okay.
Is there is there any plans to like make text splitting less punishing or something, because it's terrible?
It is.
Why is it terrible? Hold on. Let's put it plainly.
Splitting, people having different opinions and like basically delaying a team with like 1 day of progress because they think this is good, and then we think that that's good, like the APC versus FAT argument that was in the beginning of this war, at least on the Warden side. Like, I don't know, can we like do something about text splitting, because I just feel like it's damaging to everyone.
Weatherby, going to that, Outler put in a very good suggestion on the Reddit page about how to potentially fix the text splitting issue. Mark, I suggest you take a look at it if you haven't already.
Okay.
Is that the suggestion where the unused tech is folded into the one that is selected?
So basically, like, the most text tech gets text once all the texts on that line.
Once the threshold is
reached.
reached.
A certain amount.
Gotcha. Yeah.
So you know, you have to like tag things. I found like 20 times, or I don't know if I'm wrong, but if you like text something 9 times and the other thing 11 times, the 11 times one gets unlocked because you tagged that line 20 times. That was my idea. So it's more like a race of who can get more tech into his own vote. Not like, okay, here your vote, here's mine, and then wow, we are late with a day now on the tag because we couldn't agree on it.
Right, so the main goal is to reduce the frustration.
Yes, please.
Over the wasted tech. Is that?
Yeah, because the wars are so short that, I mean, not so short, they're long, but they're like short enough that you basically only have one line of tech. So what you choose is forever.
It's true though. Sometimes, like, you can't guarantee the war lasting till you get vet tech. Like, for example, last war. Who knows what's going to happen this war, but yeah.
So yeah, like you need to tag a certain amount of times in one line, and then there's a counter for the whole. Damn it! Why am I saying this? Can't put it into words because I'm tired.
Welcome to my world, all the time.
I hope I got through though.
Just make it less frustrating, and where it doesn't happen as much. It's a reoccurring issue for both teams over the last couple of wars with this new teching system.
It's tough. It goes back to that balance between, or that happy medium or impossible medium of you know, making choices matter and having consequences, hard consequences in this game, and also just freaking frustrating, right? So and like just something that's stupid or can feel stupid, right? So it's.
I feel like it's too punishing. It's just too punishing, and it doesn't promote teamwork because people just get into a bitter argument and they just don't tag anyways what the other guy wants, even if it's leading. They just don't care. I didn't care, so you know, I know how it is.
It's hard to convince 400 to 600 people to tech the same thing, because, like, you know, teching one thing is obviously the most efficient way to advance the tech. To advance it, like, progressively, like one
also,
line, next line, you know.
A really important question that I have is that what exactly the percentage means is on the tech. So if it's like 80% chance of success, does it actually tech if you don't succeed, or does it just not give you a prototype?
The latter, I think.
It doesn't. It doesn't tech.
Okay.
Yeah. If you fail, it doesn't. Like, you're talking about if you try to zoom ahead to a.
Yes.
Yeah. In that case, you would fail.
Okay. So only prototype makes. Okay. Thank you. Because people were arguing about that as well, and people not fully understanding the tech system is even more frustrating because everyone has his own little idea how it works, and then it just even becomes more like confusing, you know.
If that's the case, Mark, then the system might not be working how you intended, because I've seen the bar go up when you fail attack.
Yeah, I mean that would you probably should file a bug report about that because that seems like incorrect behavior for
Wish I could.
higher tier, right?
Oh yeah, I was there during the Port of Rhyme invasion. Sorry, I couldn't mention that earlier, but I was there. I was the person who was doing on-ground reporting during the Port of Rhyme invasion.
We actually saw. I think we saw signs. You were reading signs. I think from Mint or VonKlaus.
Yeah.
Left behind there.
Port of Rhyme.
Yeah, Mint made a lot of helpful signs. I think Mint was asking about this war, naval invasion.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
For this ongoing one, gotcha.
Yeah, we were trying to say on topic, on war.
All right. Well, was there any other questions from you gentlemen?
I have a question.
Nothing. I mean, just I hope you guys really enjoyed this war. I really enjoyed this war, taking Jade Cove, and it's always a good time beating the Collies.
Amastary, were you the one? We had another question.
Oh yeah.
We'll close with this one with you guys.
Yeah. Will we ever get like explosive mad crates of 100 back? Because I do a lot of logi, and it's really frustrating that you have to drive so many times.
You don't have to put it in crates. Can't you just whatever?
You have to do logi to understand.
Well, I know a lot of new players always get confused with the system when they're trying to store their resources into crates, and it's something you kind of have to explain to them. And sometimes
it is very confusing.
Put a lot of their resources public, and they don't mean to do that. So that might be something in that regard to maybe with the pulling mechanics or something can be done to alleviate that or to explain that function at least.
I know it's annoying, but can we have like pop-ups? Like if you try to text something that has 20% chance, it pops up, hey, and then it explains to you why you shouldn't do it or what are the risks are, so people wouldn't go for the juggernaut or something, in the as soon as they see it, and then spend all those tech parts or whatever.
Tool tips.
Iron. Just more tips. That's all.
Yeah, for sure. I think that probably the tech tree after version 1 could use a bit use a coat of polish over that user interface.
All right. Well, we'll just have to
fix
see
a lot, yeah.
the slow march to 1.0, the dreaded march to 1.0 that everyone's freaking out about. Which, yeah, I get it. But gentlemen, thank you so much for stopping by once again of the Warden Navy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, catch you again next time, hopefully.
Yeah.
All right. So
Navy Lounge.
Mark, did you have time for any more, or did you have to go soon? Because I know you were said like an hour, and then it's been an hour 48. Say what? I'm sorry.
I got one more.
You got one more? Yeah. Oh boy, LaFarfade.
Yeah,
make it a good one.
Let's hope it goes better than the last time.
I don't recall.
Oh, it's all right. That was a bad time with the moderation stuff. And
okay.
I was really angry. So
we all have those moments.
Yeah, we all do. I have a couple of things I want to go through. Just some quality of life thing. There's a Reddit user that I don't remember his name on the top of my head, but he made a Reddit post about different quality of life things. So I have a couple of points that shouldn't be too long. The first point I have is mostly what I do. I'm in Warden Navy. I just didn't want to be put in the same thing because it's not related to the clan. So there's I do mostly building, not logistic, but like frontline logistics, clearing out defenses when we take something and stuff like that. Is there a reason why we don't have a no-to-click function yet? Because I've been playing Foxhole for what, like 3 years now, and that game cost me about 4 Logitech G200, G5 502. because I keep breaking my mouse building stuff, and like it's just the bane of my existence. I always have a backup mouse because I keep breaking it. So is there a reason? I feel it would be a simple feature that a lot of people would like.
Yeah, I don't think there's any sort of major resistance against it. I think it's just falls under the category of that long list of things that we need to take a look at, right? And see if it's appropriate.
Well, there's 1,000 people screaming at you, put it up higher on the list because they've burned through way too many company mice.
Yeah. But it's I'm not exaggerating with that. It's actually I find it funny.
This is a public health issue, Mark.
Yeah, it's Foxhole's raiding my bank account every 6 months. But
that's I think that's our monetization model.
Okay. Yeah, about the monetization model, I saw MREBoy.
We have a secret deal with Logitech.
God.
That's what's going down here.
Yeah, talking about monetization, MREBoy made an interesting post. You guys lied to us.
Oh,
Yes, you did.
Oh, man.
You said no loot boxes. But every time I capture a town and there's a storage depot in it, there's always a loot box icon that comes up to it. It must be because you worked at EA before.
Foxhole is EA. Didn't you know that? It's EA. Early access, Electronic Arts.
So the other quality of life thing is more a question. Why can't the harvester take care of bunker systems?
Yeah, I think so. That might have just been an oversight, but I think there's probably a corner case in there somewhere that we haven't dealt with yet. Because in the case of a bunker base, there's an incredible amount of the health pool can be huge, right?
Yeah, no, it's more like when we knock down a bunker base. I know where the Navy we do that. We usually wreck a corner of it and just pincer the actual base itself. But like when we're doing cleanup, I hate seeing green on the map. I'm a Warden loyalist, so it's something that's why I love the harvester so much. It's just a green remover. It's frustrating to go to a corner of the map. It's like, oh, there's a bunch of defenses. I'm gonna go mow them down, and then oh fuck, it's a bunker.
Yeah, I think a lot of that had to do with the health pool and us hitting a corner case there that we probably weren't able to resolve at the time. Because you'd probably just be sitting there for like half an hour trying to take down that bunker base. But
look at the time I've played Foxhole here. You're acting like I wouldn't mind. I would not mind.
I mean, like in all seriousness, it is something maybe we should take a look at. Though it could have just been a combination of it being a corner case and maybe a bit of like an oversight on our end. So honestly, I think it's just something that we got to add to the list and see.
All right. Following up with the quality of life, when we're waiting for upgrading something, I know it's the bane of my existence. I spent the last 2 days in Fahrenheit Coast, just upgrading back and forth the towns. I know you guys don't like the concept of timers, but when we're waiting for something to be upgraded, it's very aggravating to just sit near something and I have no idea how much it's gonna take to build it up, because it's difficult for you to plan after that in your upgrade route. So let's say you take an entire map, because we're in the Navy, we do that. Like we just take over a map.
And that was like a brag there, you know.
Well,
we just take over maps.
I mean, listen here. The only thing I'm gonna say is, you know, I'm excited for the Colonials to get the mortar abstract, because I feel they need help. You know, I'm just, you know, don't want to throw shade at anything, but I feel like they really need help right now, because you know we've been curb stomping them a bit too much. But yeah, so a timer would be great, because like let's say like Fahrenheit, we curb stomp half the map in like a day, and then just the way not knowing how many, like, what time is it gonna take is very frustrating for builders. Because, like, when you take an entire map, keeping force a strategic point on the map so you don't lose AI up until you get the small garrison upgrade, that's very hard to do. Because you don't know exactly how many times it's going to take.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. I think, yeah, we've gotten some feedback on that. I think it's just something that we have to review. This was supposed to be a. I guess maybe I'll start with this question over to you, because I think this is probably the most important question relating to the new system. Do you currently feel like you prefer this system or the facility efficiency system?
That's a very hard question, because the general argument before this update, you would have asked me, is anything, like, you would ask me that question, I was like, nothing is like, nothing can be worse than the utility system. The efficiency system. Sorry, you said efficiency. The reason that is, with the efficiency, you kind of had a ballpark of when it's reset. Like, but even with the efficiency, a timer would have been great to see when it's gonna come out or not. Personally, I feel like I'm torn between, because it's a hard question, really, because you need to have people there to maintain a front, but the problem is that whatever time it takes you to get the small one, the provisional garrison, when you're moving through an objective or a map, to secure this map, what you guys made this so that it takes time to do it, and we cannot just roll through and hard cap a map within a day, or with Warden often think about night capping and stuff, or a night or whatever. So I don't have the answer to that, because the efficiency was bad, that you knew you logged off, you logged on, and if you saw that efficiency was down, very low, you knew you couldn't do enough to capture something. Now you can, but you don't know how much it's gonna take to secure that ground. So, like, I look at Faranac. When we took Faranac, well, actually, when it was the Warden Bloody Monday, where we took, like, Faranac, Abandoned Warden, Endless Shore within like an hour. Like, you have those 3 towns, and you have to maintain fronts there in order to not lose it. And really, the only thing I don't ask for a change of this. I just want to see the timer. How much time is it gonna take?
Right.
Because with that being said, you can plan forces to stay there for that amount of time. Like, we're the Navy, we're a big enough clan where we can have forces garrisoning something 24/7. We can't do that often, but it can be done.
So your main issue, just to clarify, is not so much that you do have to maintain the front. It's that you feel like you don't have the ability to plan for it.
Yes, exactly. Because everything in Foxhole needs to have a planning. Like, it's the same when you're looking at the garrison thing and you don't know what's your garrison rate consumption per hour. When you're looking at something, it's hard to plan. So, like, when you have a bunch of clan working together, and we're Navy, we're trying to work with as much clan as we can, it's hard for us to plan how to maintain infrastructure within the game, because we don't know the consumption rate of a structure, we don't know all that stuff, and those are all quality of life data that we need in order to be able to plan more efficiently.
There's a lot of concepts thrown in there. Listening along, so.
Yeah. Well, yeah, of course it is. It's like I said, it's a lot of quality of life things, but I feel like we need those things in order to be able to plan infrastructure and fields.
Yeah, I think this is like version 1 of base upgrades, and with efficiency we were at like, I don't know, version like 4 or something like that. So I do think there is definitely room to improve there. I think the main question that
I mean, at the end of the day, you can't just tell me fuck off. It's early access.
No,
that's like the trump card.
Well, I mean, at the end of the
day, it's early access.
To counter that, though, I actually don't really want to use that phrase at this. I think at the beginning, like a year or two ago, I think that was a good. There was a lot of truth to that, but at this point, we are closing in on 1.0, and I don't really want to wave away every issues. In fact, I think if I were to opt for a straight answer, it probably wouldn't be, well, screw off, this is early access. It'll probably be like, well, I'm sorry, but we just might not get to that yet. Like, this is not it's not something that we'll do in the next year. And I do try to do that. Like, if I do sense that, okay, we're not going to get to it for half a year, I will try to communicate that, because at the end of the day, like, we're only human beings trying to do the best we can, and like, we're not going to address every issue.
Mark, you are a government-funded development studio. I demand more from no, but
no, you can demand anything, because I'm Canadian here. I can demand. He's in my country.
Okay.
My taxpayer money.
He's paying the taxes here.
I pay your salary.
Right.
Hey, Lafarfade, we do have to close out here. We are approaching time.
Yeah,
so
I
thank
know
you
we
so
have
much.
to close. Just if I can just do the closing statement.
Okay.
I think there was a lot of uproar with the community management side of thing and all the moderators and stuff, and I think you guys did a great job in alleviating all that lately. That's one of the main reasons I come back, is the change you've made to the moderation system and stuff like that. So I really appreciate you guys taking a stand, changing stuff around. That's it.
Look at that. Closure.
Thank you.
Until the next fuck
Hey,
up.
listen. Yeah, until the next fuck up, then I'll be here and I'll get kicked again. But,
there you go.
All
right, hey, thank you so much.
Hey, no problem. There's another Wonder Navy member that would like to come on, if you can. oneGanjaman.
I don't know if
he keeps poking me to tell you guys to come in, but
he should be poking me. He should be poking me. But regardless, thank you so much.
All right, no problem. Have a good night. Thank you.
Hey, whoops. Hey, Mark. Okay, I know you do have to go. I know that was your last one, but I did skip this person in the queue. Quick question, 30 seconds. Will we ever be able to submit shipping container contents directly to town halls, fobs, and bunkers? We can do direct to from other buildings from shipping container. Bypassing the pullout step would be good for logic QoL, or quality of life.
Yeah, so I think probably not the shipping containers as we know them now today, because that was one of the very fundamental trade-offs with the shipping container system, was that you get to carry more, but if you want to deliver it efficiently, you're going to have to bring it to a storage depot. So the whole, players. So actually, I do want to just take a really quick moment to explain the background there. How that system was supposed to work was that shipping containers were supposed to be the high bandwidth, but high latency sort of way to send a large amount of things over to another storage depot. So kind of going from like storage depot to storage depot. But it would take, the latency would be like the setup time, right? Like you got to have a crane, you got to have a flatbed truck, you got to have a shipping container, you got to set all this stuff up. It's going to take a long time latency to set this up. But once you set it up, you can just kind of like shotgun a huge amount of stuff over to the other side. And the idea is that on the other end, you have trucks. The advantage of a truck is that it's very low latency, right? You can just hop in a truck, and it's very flexible, but the bandwidth is not that high. So we were picturing like networks of like these almost these like highways that would be your seaports to and your storage depots and eventually other cool things, hopefully. um, but and then you have your truck drivers that are kind of your local roads, right? So I think allowing a shipping container to go directly into a town hall would kind of be completely circumventing that framework. In fact, I already personally don't really like how shipping containers are. They're like deployed at a town hall, and everybody just walks up to it and like pulls out a crate. Um, but the reason why we left that in there is because we felt if we took that out, it would subtract too much from the sandbox side of the game. Like you have the shipping container in front of you. Why can't you just take the stuff out, right? So that's one of those sort of like sandbox versus like hard like game mechanics type of problems that we had to struggle with. So
Yeah. Okay. Well, hey, Mark, I know you do have to go. I want to remind everyone that Mark is taking 2 hours minimum every time he does this after hours when he could be playing the game that he makes. So, if anything, if you ever think Mark doesn't play enough of the game, that's technically my fault. But yeah, this is because like you're essentially you have been doing between you and KFC or Max, you gentlemen have been doing essentially a dev stream every week because this is kind of an extension of that has become that. So
it's actually like my last point on that. It's is like besides the energy, which obviously it is like a taxing thing to do all these streams, but we do it a lot because I really enjoy like talking about the game. I mean, the hard questions are the hard questions, and perhaps those are a bit less enjoyable. But I like to ramble on about the game. I like talking about it, and often when we do our meetings inside the team, they're very similar to these kinds of like things that we talk about here. It's not that different actually. Anyways, that's my final point on that.
yeah. Hey, Mark Foot, have a good one. We're going to continue the show, get as many people on here to screw around as much as we can. But Mark, thank you so much.
Thanks
get some
for
rest.
having me.
Enjoy that time off that you didn't get, that everyone else got.
I will. Thanks. Thank
Have
you.
a good
Bye.
one. All right. Well, we're going into overtime here, and I think we'll just throw everyone else into the mix. I do apologize as usual to everyone else who wasn't able.
Man, I wanted to ask Malkfoot.
I know. I'm sorry. We can never. It's tricky because people want me to ask follow-ups. Like, why didn't you follow up on that question or that statement Mark made? Okay, well, sure, but then that's another 5 minutes there. But so it's a battle.
What a roller coaster of emotions this game, man. I'm telling you, sometimes I'm so fucking angry and oh shit, can I curse? Sorry.
Do you have a story to share? Because it sounds like you've been in the shit lately.
Yeah, a lot, to be honest.
Oh yeah.
Pushing on Jade was a very heavy battle in Makas, and then we tried to push on Victor, and then we decided to push on Jade. It's like we won't know like which place to take first. Maybe surround the town, maybe not. Warden. Of course, Warden.
I was gonna say, with talk like that, that's clearly Warden. There's been bragging happening this evening. No offense.
No, but
he's French.
Let's I'm not French, dude. Nobody knows exactly where I'm from.
What's even going on in here anymore?
I don't know. But I want to talk
chilling
about
with
like,
Geoffrey.
what about progression? Like about your character, your own character. Like, right? We have the leveling system and the ranking system, and it does nothing, absolutely nothing, but shows.
It is
like,
a social. It's
that
nothing
you're
more than just a social moniker.
Yeah. Why not making it like customization type thing? Like
Example. Can you give us an example of something you'd like to see?
Yeah, if you're like a major, you will get like a major hat or get some medals on your shirt, or those little touches that gives more respect for the guy that
Just a hat is good.
Yeah, just a hat, even a hat.
Someone needs to
change
go
the
on
entire-
Zero Dark and talk about this next time, like you. But yeah, it's tricky because so for the record, the devs have, for those catching up, the devs do have they can easily make uniforms. They can spit them out in like a week because they have a bunch of models, player
Exactly.
models. They have a bunch of concepts that they can easily utilize. The thing is that, at least from what I've gathered over the years, is that they're very hesitant to implement them because they have seen other games. This might be more conjecture from me, but I do get the feeling that they have seen other games. Kind of the moment they cross that threshold with aesthetics, particularly player costumes or uniforms or whatever, you do begin to lose some control with it. So I think they're fearful of a TF2 situation, a Team Fortress 2 situation, where, if you remember way back when, it was like, okay, let's do one hat per class, and then they'll be like themed to their character, and then you fast forward to like today, and they've got like all these crazy
It's a
ass.
clusterfuck.
Yeah, exactly. It completely kills the art style.
Oh yeah, I can agree. It's not.
Yeah,
It's
and
not.
that's the other end of the extreme. So I understand that that's not too relevant right now to nothing.
The second thing that fucking scares me, it's the voting system, because the population will go down again before another update, and we're gonna have a 300 player only playing the game, and the voting system will break the game. They really need to change it, because I can see the population going down, and we want to upgrade. Maybe scale, yeah, scale to the population of the game. Like if it goes down, every vote will count as more. Oh, I don't know how to actually think about it, but the population, when it will go down, and if they don't change it fast, it will break the game.
Yeah, it's tricky because that system, a lot of systems are built on the precipice that, or the precipice, the preface that, that there needs to be a high pop, or at least a certain amount of population before it can properly function. How they adjust for that, I don't quite know. I do know that pretty much everyone prefers this, at least in a big war, prefers this over the voting, over what we had before, which was, I think, U parts and efficiency and all that. But yeah, you're right. That you bring up an excellent point, and we will that issue will probably become get more and more sore as the population, plans to go down, because after every update, it naturally goes down, as we all know, as they know as well. So I think it's just something they're going to have to brace for, as Mark has mentioned multiple times. I can't speak for him, but I can recall what he said, which is, hey. We just got to endure it. It's going to suck for 3 months, but hopefully our next patch will break it a little less. I should say, Tao Zeph, he always has great comments in the comment box here. It's specifically about uniforms and whatnot. The focus of the game isn't quite on the customization and the aesthetics. I have seen too many games where the aesthetics have become the focus than the actual gameplay improvements. I want to focus on what he said at the end there. I have seen too many games where the aesthetics have become the focus of the actual gameplay improvements, and I think he does have an interesting point there, if I can speak further on that.
Give you a different perspective about that.
Yeah, because
let's just say, take a guy that loves satchels and bombs and grenades and whatever, and he picks up like a shirt that shows that he's having grenades on him, or something for his own personality.
Yeah,
or something.
right. So you can identify.
Yeah, exactly.
That has a function. I don't think that's something that. I don't think that necessarily is what he was talking about. That would be super cool to see. You can also tell when someone's super loaded. Every now and then you see someone with 100 rifle clips or 1,000 SMG magazines. I'm like, what the hell are you doing? It'd be funny to see that they turn into like a Death Stranding character, where they have like an obscene amount of things. But I think what he's talking about is specifically how, because when you get customization. I'm kind of arguing against my own beliefs here, but I'll play devil's advocate. When you have customization, you are naturally encouraging individuality, as opposed to something like, hey, why do militaries have uniforms? It's to remove that sense of individuality, right? It's to make things uniform, and
in the military.
Say what?
I know how it is.
Maybe it could be something smaller and more benign, like a unit icon on the uniform or on the side of a tank or a patch.
Or
kind of getting
for
almost
say
into
a
the
medic.
tag bit.
Medic should probably have a. You can't use a red cross, but they could have a green cross on the helmet showing they're a medic.
Targets.
Fair enough. Well, the Japs did that in World War
But
II.
going back to like Geoffrey's point, though, it makes sense because once you start rolling out customizations right now, then probably half of the Reddit posts are gonna go from looking at problems into just customization suggestions. So I bet you they have works on it. Everything's ready. It's just they don't want to do it right now, so the community kind of focuses on the problems.
Right. I have again. This is my conjecture, but I have a sneaking suspicion they have done a lot of work on uniforms, but they don't want to go down the slippery slope just yet until they figure it out.
Yeah.
I think it might. I think this is conjecture. It might tie into a new leveling system. So
I hope so.
Well, we will have to see about that.
Give me my Major General undies.
Geoffrey?
Yeah.
I'd like to discuss an idea I had. I wanted to forward to Mark, but he's sadly not here.
I had something to say.
Yeah, Viper. If it's something about the previous topic, yeah, we'll finish that up.
Yeah. They've been also fairly hands off with custom uniforms in the form of a pack file. They've been very hands off with that and allowing. So if you really, really want a custom uniform, you can just do it yourself as long as you're not.
Does that violate a VAC valve anti-cheat?
Hasn't yet. I've had it since I've had it to test out the anti-cheat, and it hasn't triggered yet.
Okay, because we do want to be careful about that. I know, like hey, I don't care about mods, but I do know that like people were worried about it because it might trigger VAC or something, and that's way out of the devs' hands. But they've been forced to because of all the unscrupulous action. Yeah.
The sound mod works. Uniform mods work. Custom flags work. It's fine.
Hey, Geoffrey, I got a question for you.
So we'll go to Johansen's thing because he had another point to bring up.
Oh yeah.
It was more of a small idea to spice up urban combat a bit. This might be extremely cancerous, or this might be extremely good. So bear with me. Sewers. So you can in town. So you can go down.
Warsaw uprising intensifies.
In like Polish sewers in World War II, like Warsaw, and there was this small oval sewers where you could walk through them, but there's not a lot of space. And then you could crawl up with ladders and so on. And if it is a town where there's the sea or there's a river like Saltbrook or Jade Cove, there's entry points into the sewer from there. You can enter from a motorboat or something like that.
Do you crawl through them, or is it like an instant teleport?
Well, the idea is you would walk through them and you would fight in the sewers themselves.
I can see a few ways it will glitch the game, like the camera, a lot of stuff like about you.
I think they have to figure out how they handle close quarters combat, because that's something tricky with this game, particularly with someone mentioned it earlier, I forget who. They were talking about how do they make actually fighting in these bunker systems, like let's say the enemy has pierced the defenses and now it's lateral fighting. You're fighting between.
I was actually doing that earlier today. It's serviceable.
Yeah, but it's tougher and it's not as clean, not as smooth, right?
Mm-hmm.
On the same sort of fork of that discussion, tunnels might be useful. Like they work the same as trenches. They're just covered.
I'm sorry, say that again, Hitachi.
There's a lot of freaking tanks out here where I'm at.
Oh, okay. We're getting live reports now. Should I hit the song? Should I hit the flash? No, but anyway, I think Johansen. It would be interesting, but I think the first hurdle is to figure out close quarters combat.
Yeah.
Question of the room. This is gonna get crazy, but how does fighting in a house currently Is it? It's not that smooth, right?
It's not smooth at all.
Yeah, I
like,
don't.
at all. You sometimes aim at the fucking ceiling of the
Yeah.
room, and they need to address it. But I always forget about it to address it. It's a small thing. It's not happens a lot, but it sometimes happens, and even outside of a building, when you're trying to aim at somebody and he's coming from a corner, and you're trying to adjust the camera, and you adjust it the wrong way, and you're trying to aim at him, but you aim at the rooftop of the building, stuff like that.
I have even a worse experience. It happened today when I was fighting in Saltbrook. It was not inside of a house, but that's not the thing. Basically, I were trying to shoot the guy, but I came so close to him that I couldn't shoot him.
Yeah, it's very tricky. I remember when I was playing under one of my pseudonyms. I think this was like 3 weeks ago or something. It was like a 2v2 situation in like a very peripheral town, and they kept on trying. They were holed up in one of those, not a garrison house, but it was one of those like static houses that you just use for cover. And they were on the second floor, and we were like, "How the hell do you shoot up there?" Because it's just so annoying trying to get into that specific niche where they're taking cover from. I get that they're supposed to have cover and it's supposed to be harder, but I literally cannot target this correctly, and it's very frustrating. So I understand that all about close quarters combat or elevated fights that's not on a peaceful rolling hill. It's tricky, especially on the rocks. So, in any case, I think Coconut, you wanted to talk about something else.
Well, actually, adding on that, it feels like it's a quick fix, except they just have to look at each house one by one.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, it just takes time. No, I just wanted to ask, are you guys still doing that newspaper thing where clans advertise on the side of the
Oh
page?
my God! You have no idea how much that would be cool. How much we would love that. However, the problem
Those are
is,
so cool.
if you notice, we would seriously love it. But if you notice, if you look at our releases channel, go down to the Newswire and releases.
Yeah.
You notice that every single release we do is a singular story, instead of
Oh
a
my goodness.
newspaper, which is a compilation of other stories. Right? That's essentially what a newspaper is. The issue we have is that we did try doing a newspaper, and we have done newspapers before, which compiles stories. The issue is making a newspaper is freaking hard. In terms of formatting, having to proofread the stories, and I actually, on top of the usual headaches that you see in the singular releases, really the formatting is the most difficult part. That is a job in and of itself, and it's something that only a limited number of us even have the capabilities of doing, one. And two, that have like the mental capacity, not the mental capacity, but just the patience to do it and the time. Because, if you do, let's say, oh, hey, this news story came in, that's a pretty long one. Okay, well, that kind of throws off our pacing of how this goes. But we need to get it in before the next issue because this is a really big story for this one. And then what happens is we just have issues that die in the editing bay, and those stories never get released. So
yeah, I mean, people have lives too, right?
Yeah, exactly. So it sucks because
Wait, people have lives?
Yeah, I know, right?
Have you guys ever thought about taking donations for people who really
That's
want
another
to,
one.
donate to you guys?
Money is a fickle bitch. It is something that is very, very tricky to navigate around because the moment we start taking money for the PressCorps, I have to pay everyone in the PressCorps, right? I'm obligated to do that. I can't just take it all for myself because there are a lot of people here who do as much, if not more work than me. Also, how do you quantify someone who only does drawings? They do a lot of drawings. They spend a lot of time on their drawings. But how do you how do you compare, like, how do you judge how much they get compared to someone who only does news stories, who only does write-ups? How do you judge that with someone else who does only live broadcasting, right?
You can look up how media works.
Yeah,
but that's running a company at that.
Alternatively,
Exactly.
bite the bullet and sit down with these people and crunch it out and figure out what they're worth to the production of the paper as a whole.
That's
no, because because you're doing.
It's not an easy thing to do. No one wants to do it.
Donations,
But if
I'd
you
be
were
one of
going
those
to,
guys
you'd
who,
have
if
to
I
bite
had
the
$1
bullet.
to spare, I'd give it to you guys.
I appreciate it. We have gotten many of those offers before.
Absolutely.
I think to keep it as clean as possible, we have stuck to our guns on not taking any money because then money kind of corrupts, right?
That's admirable.
Because then you also have to think about the hiring process, right? Because right now if you come to the press corps and like you just want to do stuff, we'll take you. Like even if you're not that good, we'll like try to help you as long as best we can. No guarantees, right? If we have had people here before who stop by, try to do something. It's like, hey, this isn't for me. It's like, okay, all good, whatever. But then when you kind of throw money there, it's like, oh boy. So then we have to feel obligated to help this person along if they want to be part of something and get paid. Alternatively, what am I trying to say is, are they only in it for the money, or do they actually, will that affect the quality and like the spirit of what we do if they're all in it for the money and we're going to be fighting about who gets what, how much people spend on it?
Plus another thing, like here, take this money and now roll up this clan story I made here, just to make it seem a bit better than it actually was.
Okay.
Yeah, and then you'll get lobbyists for specific.
Yeah, lobbyists. No joke. That would happen. I'm not joking. That would happen.
$50 for the Jade Cove assault.
I would take each and every
yet again. Like out there about taking reports, live streaming and all that stuff. I mean, I'm not saying you guys don't do a good job as it stands. I'd like to see more of you guys out there.
That's another thing. Absolutely, that's another thing. The moment we start taking money, we have to feel obligated to like validate everyone's spending, right? Otherwise, it's like, hey, I just gave you $20. Why aren't you doing stuff? Well, sorry.
Why aren't you on this dying front?
Exactly. No, exactly. I get DMs all the time. Humble brag, but I get DMs all the time, and it's like, hey, can you like do? This is a big story right now. Why aren't you doing this? I have work. Like, I'm sorry. Like,
yeah.
I have to
imagine having work, lol.
I have to like afford basic healthcare because I have people to take care of. I'm
you
sorry.
wouldn't have this problem if you just let us run the show for you with money.
Hey, okay, so I'll let people in on this. We have talked about, because right now everything runs off my computer, right? So people have asked, hey, what if we do like a remote desktop thing so everyone can just go into Geoffrey's computer and just take over OBS? Okay, massive violation of my privacy, first and foremost. So then, okay, what if can we afford like a separate computer, a specific streaming computer just for the press corps? And it's like, okay, that's a whole different operation, and we have considered.
Well, one thing you could do,
donate to that cause.
Yeah, donate to that cause as a crowdfunding to improve the quality of PressCorps.
It's not technically.
We solved the problem.
Problem. People can help.
It's pricey, and again, if people are going to spend a lot of money on this, we have to be obligated to do something with it. Here's another big philosophical point of view on this whole money thing, because money corrupts. We've been talking about this for a while, if you notice. Start a GoFundMe, start an OnlyFans. People have DM'd me, hey, start an OnlyFans. No. People have said that you're putting in all this work into the press corps and building up these systems. What if like Foxhole doesn't take off? What if like it reaches 1.0 and it just kind of doesn't do much beyond that? That's
devs want
Grandpa,
this game to
what's
be
that
niche.
dusty old computer for?
The devs
oh yeah,
just
that was
want this game
the
to be
streaming
niche.
computer for the
They don't want
MMO.
above 4,000 players in a game because they cannot support that. The solvers doesn't support that. The
Big Boss Teef is saying go back to Planetside. Yeah, I probably should at this point because.
So you want it to go the way of Space Station 13?
I don't even know what that is, and I'm glad I don't.
Oh, I know what it is. I played that.
Oh, there's like freaking 20 tanks where I'm at. There's like no joke. There's like 20 tanks where I'm at.
Hold on.
The wall. Give me the location so I will go.
And where is that?
Hold on, time out.
From reaching trail to the Great March, from the aging ocean to the endless sea, From Fisherman's Row to Godcroft's, live from Studio A in PressCorps World Headquarters, this is Foxhole Flash, bringing you the latest news from across the Siva Valley War Zone.
Hitachi, I'm going to go to you in a couple seconds. Good morning, afternoon, or evening. For the PressCorps, I'm Geoffrey Jennings. Here in the 60th conflict of the Foxhole War, it is day 300. We now go live to Hitachi Misaki, guest reporter here. Hitachi, first of all, can you share your screen on Discord? Is that possible?
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be good. It's only audio. Okay, so we're gonna try and get into your audio here. By the way, this is how reporters do it. This is how we do it behind the scenes. You're gonna behind the scenes right now.
Oh my longer.
Hitachi, can you describe where you are?
His face is looking sexy.
Don't
boys. I'm digging this.
spoil any intel.
All right.
This is literally a
I'm
crash
gonna
course
come
in
back with
field
more
reporting.
stuff. Y'all let me know in chat what y'all need, and we'll get it to you.
Hitachi, can you describe the situation where you're at?
So from my understanding, it looks like they're trying to push. We're somewhere in
Who's
the.
Who's they?
I'm noticing a lot of siege tanks, specifically Silverhands, but the clan that seems to be running most of them is Siege and ARC. I'm just here, observing for the most part, but
Press the L key and then once you didn't press the L key again.
People are rocketing shit. You wanna go help the
I think you went AFK. Oh god, fuck.
But it does look like they're gearing up for a big push somewhere down here.
Now, what has the action been like here in the night of day 300 with all this armor push?
Well, for the most part, for me it's like I just showed up here, but it's almost as if it's starting to gear up and take off. It looks like they're organizing still, but I do hear the sound of artillery and gunfire, not too far in the distance. So
And just watch.
It might be interesting to see what happens down here.
In the trenches.
Hitoshi is tracker there.
Oh man, I'm not used to hear the old sounds of the game.
Yeah, those tanks are waiting for daylight.
Yeah. Daylight comes and everything.
Daylight's gonna come.
I can report about the fishes I found in Fisherman. I found a salmon. I found a lot of them.
Hitoshi, count the tanks for us. How many tanks are there?
1 second.
Are those Silverhands?
Yes, they are Silverhands. I'm noticing
my
that there's a
goodness.
few armored cars spread in there.
See,
But
the sad thing about the soundboard is I can't really.
Hey, I should mention earlier to what I said about, what if this game doesn't take off? Tao Zeph, you mentioned it. Yeah, certainly the PressCorps wouldn't die out. I should emphasize though, I'm not like saying that, oh boy, Foxhole's not looking great. We should start looking at other games. No, I wasn't implying that at all. Not that you were either. But I do want to preface that what I'm saying is specifically in the context of spending money, right? Buying a whole streaming computer for $700 minimum, and then cost on top of that. It's like, oh man, do we really want to spend all of that and like get money? That's what I'm talking about. Do we want to get money involved in this? And honestly, we probably would not do that until 1.0, when we can absolutely guarantee, even though we are kind of guaranteed, the devs have proven they're going to stick with us until it all goes down burning. But until it reaches a 1.0. And then maybe we can see about maybe spending a little bit more money, and even then, Teef, that is a good point. Spending a streaming computer will be we would actually be shipping it to one of our reporters who has the time to upkeep such a thing. But in any case, we'll see. But it's just tricky. Money is tough. That is a hard dedication. And getting money involved to paying individual members of the Corps, that is a Pandora's box. That is a huge threshold that we would be crossing.
If anything, any donations should only be used to improve equipment.
right, that's what I think it should be used for. I don't think paying people would be necessary. Just
This still creates an expectation that you need to deliver on the quality based on how much you're being paid.
I still don't mind if Johnny will take it to his pocket.
We could Yeah, we could also be.
I mean,
we
it's
could
a
also.
donation, right? That's the.
Yeah, we could also be overstating the standards here. Although I don't think we're doing it too much, and we do want to keep high standards because we don't want to people feel are shifted for their money. But
Yes,
people
we
have
are
mentioned.
above everyone else.
Yeah, people have mentioned that people like to just spend money on Twitch like it's nobody's business. Like they'll spend it like tissue paper. I was like, yeah, I'll give $5 here to this guy. He's hasn't talked for an hour and he's only streaming to like one viewer. I'll give him $10. He seems like a nice dude. People do that, so I don't know. We would rely on whales, but yeah, it's tricky, and part of me and a majority of me has just wanted to keep things clean and not. I should put the gameplay in the background. Keep things clean and not cross. I should not cross the threshold. So yeah.
How much on ground news reporting have you been doing?
Personally, me.
Well, just PressCorps in general. Are you guys pretty active? I mean, every time I hop in, it's usually music.
For this war, practically none. Actually, none.
Not this wall, not this wall, but the previous walls. You guys were on to us like the second we nuked Tempest one time, the wall, the Navy. You came to our channel like asking how we did it, how it came to be, and like what makes us decide to attack that point.
See, I've been in Foxhole close to 2 years now, and the thing that got me into PressCorps is I don't know if they remember, but safe houses first came out, and PressCorps was there in the very first safe house, and that thing held for like 24 hours.
This is Oleander. This is Oleander Homestead.
Yeah,
the Oleander Monster House, immortalized in Potatoes documentary.
That was
All hail Potato.
I subscribed. Yeah.
That shit was insane. Holy. No, I do wish we had the original. That was this is something you'll learn. That was before I set the PressCorps Twitch account to save highlights.
Oh,
so we don't have the original broadcast recording of that because we did have I think it was Dr. Ponsonby on the ground reporting on that, and or maybe him or Mari Sharp, but either way, he was covering that, and it was insane. It was like Pavlov's house.
Yeah. See, I was watching it in the afternoon, I think, and I went to church and went somewhere else. I came back at night, and the dude's still in the house. They're still pushing it. I was like, what the hell is going on?
Yeah.
I think it's funny how it all came full circle from the collies using human wave tactics to try and take the safe house to the wardens using human wave tactics to completely destroy the collie armor this war.
Johansen, what were we talking about?
I would like to take a second to praise Potato for his documentary. Again.
Still our crowning moment. Our crowning moment.
I want to say, guys, it's a pleasure to talk to you guys. I need to go back to my clan.
Yeah, you as well. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
I'd like to leave too. I need to eat dinner. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
Hitachi, I did. I'm no longer watching your screen share, so you don't have to worry about that anymore. Thank you so much, Hitachi.
I'm fucked.
He's just playing, I guess.
No, but
I'm heading out to Geoffrey.
No, farewell. Thank you so much. To explain to our remaining viewers, so how many broadcasts have we done? Practically none for this war because I actually had to actively reserve time off from work and sacrificed a lot of time I should have been working to report.
Someone said found the footage.
No, that's a joke. It's literally the movie Monster House, but I actually had to actively reserve time to report, to be able to provide a space for Brownie to be able to report, and Spots and Moth to report so much on the 59th conflict. So that was a struggle in and of itself. So for the following war, it's like, okay, big war happened, update war. I gotta stop. I gotta focus on life, and that's why we have done practically nothing. I should mention, even though we aren't able to do the live broadcasts, and won't be able to until we can afford a streaming computer, we still always have write-ups in the submissions and releases channels. In the Newswire, if you go to the PressCorps Discord, we do have in the section titled Newswire, we have releases, and those are official releases from submissions either from guests who write their own entries or from PressCorps reporters who are essentially doing the same thing, only now they're writing up about it. So it's a little less chaotic, a little less dead air, a little less, you know, uh, it's essentially like something you would see, like breaking news. Let's look at this, shootout for an hour and then nothing happens, versus reading a newspaper. So it's there are differences, but the press corps has been doing stuff for this war, albeit at a reduced rate and in a different way. But
Geoffrey?
Yeah, go ahead.
I have one proposal how to fix the live stream thing, right? We can't use the main PressCorps Twitch, but you could create your own, like, let's say it'll be based like my name, Press Johansen, right? And it'll be like the present, so it'll be PressCorps, but it'll still be a live stream. What's going on?
We have figured that before. The issue is a couple things. One of them we would have to face no matter what, which is just getting people set up to stream, period. Two is the inconsistency of it all, right? So, like, how you would stream. Well, how you would stream would be different than how Brownie streams. And not even so much your style, how you discuss things, how you observe things, but more so just the pure mechanics of streaming itself, right? So
how it would look.
Yeah, how it would look, how it would sound, and it would be inconsistent, so that would be an issue. I'm not too necessarily up in arms about that, because I understand things need to be different, and people, I don't want exact clones of me. However, there is the issue of having a radio, and then, no. Let me think about this before I shoot it down. What if we had like a PressCorps auxiliary channel? I'm really thinking out loud live on the air right now. So, yeah. What if we had Teef, I'll talk about Planetside in a bit. Literally just one secondary channel. So we remove the issue of decentralization, where you have 16 PressCorps reporter channels and no one's watching them because the followers are spread out. What if we had a secondary channel that we could share the stream keys on, and then you can use that to go live?
That's what I was thinking.
I'll bring that up.
Well, there's also the idea of just having a computer that's completely dedicated to it, and it's always on, and then you can just let people let your PressCorps just jump into those channels that this computer's sitting in, and they can just stream that way.
We did talk about that, and that was again money.
That's the money issue.
And that's where donations would come into play, but you'd only accept donations for the computer from people who want to do it.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't need like this multi-$1,000 computer. You only need about $500.
We did crunch the numbers, and it would be a high RAM, higher CPU computer, and something with obviously good internet, although that's separate from the hardware. So it would probably we crunched the numbers to about $700 for something reliable.
I find that the AMD processor is, right now my Ryzen 5 runs a lot better than any Intel processor I've had previously.
Yeah, well,
and I don't care what anybody says, but for the price that it runs very well.
Yeah, we'll have to see. My one gripe or my one hesitation with that idea of having only the two channels, so one that plays music and does like Zero Dark PressCorps, and then the other one for reporting, is that you do lose that centralization, even if it's just two channels, so just one other one. You do lose that centralization, and also that coolness of having like breaking news. This is not as strong of an argument, but you do lose that, like, hey, the music has stopped because something big just went down in the port of Rhyme. Like, that's super cool. So there is that to consider. But I'll bring up that idea of having only a secondary channel for that we can share the stream keys to, heavily monitored, safety precautions. But
only trusted members allowed.
And we would do requirements just like we do the uniform. However, yeah, there is that one part of me where it's like I like everything in one spot, and it centralizes everything. It's easier, and it is cool.
But sometimes that's not possible.
I'm sorry,
you
what?
have to adapt. You have to adapt sometimes.
You do have to adapt sometimes, and if you listen to like C-SPAN radio, I know literally no one here does that. But if you listen to C-SPAN radio, they do have like 3 separate channels because there's so much stuff, and you can't centralize all that without missing things. So they do have 3 separate channels. BBC has like 7 different radio channels. I'm thinking back to all the other ones. I think NPR does. No, I think NPR just sticks with affiliate stations.
DR1, DR2, DR3, that's for TV, but, then there are other channels there. The first, second, third, fourth, which is also split up into different regionals, for news for the different parts of the country.
Yes,
and maybe a fifth, I'm not sure.
Yeah, but Foxhole is everything, right? So if it's Foxhole is one shared experience as opposed to different shards. I don't know. It's tricky. That's something we will have to consider, and I will bring that up to the core. So we'll see about that. And Johansen obviously will be part of that conversation too. Teef did mention to check out Planetside 2 because they did revamp their developer staff and how their publisher, whatever. I actually don't know exactly what happened because I've left that game a long ago. Let me tell you my story about Planetside 2. I fell in love with PS2 back in 2014. My God. And I just love that concept. It's essentially the concept that Foxhole has. I had 2 issues with it though. One is that it really was such a fast pace that things didn't mean anything the way that Foxhole does. If you want to talk about wide swings and nothing mattering, and like you don't get those cool stories anymore, go play Planetside because oh yeah, we just pushed like half of Hausen, half of the continent, and like we captured all these things, and then like tomorrow or like 6 hours later, none of it means anything because the Zerg or just the natural people that were there. Yep, exactly. Teef said that, yeah, Planetside 2 is designed to play for 2 hours and then win or lose and log. It was like skirmish mode. Correct. That is actually how it is designed, and that is not changing anytime soon. That is a fundamental design philosophy that will not change. And I think I understand that it's a much more casual experience compared to Foxhole. It's a much faster paced experience, a more arcadey experience, a much more meta experience than Foxhole. Because it is definitely a reflex shooter in many ways compared to Foxhole, which is not pure, but we really want to emphasize shadow dancing, de-emphasize FPS skills, and yeeting yourself across a cliff to take out 2 dudes or something. So it is a different experience, and I think I just have to fundamentally disagree with it.
There's something I miss about the old Foxhole. Comebacks, proper comebacks, You've been pushed all the way back, and then you come back and you just kick ass,
There was something to say about War 59. I was really looking forward to the war, and this is just not a like a factional bias thing. This is just me looking for like cool fights. I was really looking forward for the Wardens to take Hermit's Rest, take Jade Cove, and then the Collies had their backs against the wall. They were supposedly, I don't know how confirmed this is, the Collies were supposedly building up a bunker line in their last 3 remaining regions in Great March, Heartlands, and Westgate. Now, I think in retrospect, that line would not have held at all because they were just so on the back foot, and the Wardens had just so much material to punch through that. But it would have been cool to see. Unfortunately, we never got to see that play out because the victory towns. The math was just right, where once the Wardens got Jade Cove, once they got Hermit's Rest, the war was over. And I understand that the devs have the victory towns in place. have that requirement, that number in place to prevent just one faction beating down on another faction for like a month in just one town or one region, and like they can't do anything. But part of me just wants to see it happen. You know what I'm talking about? I'll even volunteer to be on the losing side. I will volunteer to be part of the team that gets beat down for a month or a week.
In it, just Blemish gets surrounded, only Blemish, nothing else, everything else blue, only Blemish is green.
Exactly. Yeah. No, I would love to see that and be part of that. Just that siege mentality, kind of like that, Warhammer 40K, Cadia.
I want to see a proper siege with everything surrounded. The enemy coming from all sides, it's what's just pushing in.
And just the coolness of having that be the status quo for like 2.5 weeks, and then finally something happens and breaks through. Like maybe the warden. Again, you would need to build mechanics. Let me say that not guaranteed to plan out well at all. It would be unbalanced, and it would probably be hell. Not in a great way, but you would have to balance around that. Where it's like, okay, maybe you need to have more like put more stress on the warden supply lines, and I don't know how you plan. You would have to seriously revamp the map and how it works and all that. But again, just to have that experience where it's the devs. Yeah, go ahead.
It's Ad Valley.
Mm-hmm.
In
we can talk about cities, but
no, not cities. Entire regions of the world.
Yeah, the devs have stated that they have had a soft goal of having wars last for 3 months, and I love the idea of that. People are like immediately knee-jerk, understandably so, and be like, no, that's horrible. Why would you do that in the current state the game is? But if you dream big, think beyond that. How cool would it be if like the collies were on that last bunker line for literally a month, and it was just you're just constantly trying to find a way out of that situation. Think, at some point, yes, the front would get stale. The trenches would get really boring, but that's what trenches are, right? That's literally trench warfare. And then think about the story. I know there are some people who don't I know there are some people who don't care about this at all, but think about the stories you could have behind the lines or even on the lines. Don't think about the combat anymore. Think about the stories of that status quo. Think about the culture of that status quo. Think about the cool moments you would have. I hope, and I know this is far down on literally everyone's list, and I'll stop rambling after this.
I have an example.
Okay, go ahead.
Day 546. We got shelled again. The wardens tried to push us again. This is hell. Please send help. And food. I haven't eaten in a week. Something like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, something like that. And I do hope that Foxhole, at some point in its development, does find time and encourage, like something like a culture to develop in the game itself. So I'm not talking about Discord, which is all fine and dandy. It'll be a thing, or on Reddit, or on websites, or whatever. But a culture of something happening in the game. So like people, I always highlight, and they're an extreme minority, and it's a very niche, but I always love talking about the people in the back line, the way back line. Like I'm talking about if the fight is in Callahan's Passage, I'm talking about colonials doing backline stuff in the Heartlands. Just people who like to go on patrol, people who like to just mine and talk about stuff. Like there are people who just mine and talk, like, and that's like how they know each other. Like that stuff is so cool. Like I wish I could do stories on that.
Well, I don't see why you couldn't.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, like the Red Ball Express.
Mm-hmm.
Like massive line of truck drivers supplying the Allies after the invasion in Normandy.
Yeah, and like.
But I have an example.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
About how I think wars should be longer than they are, because I am a leader of a clan, of course, the 45th. So we had recently an operation planned with field artillery and everything because we had a shit ton of armaments waiting to be used, you know. But the war ended on that day, so we couldn't use anything. So it was pretty much a waste of mining, and it could have been better used given to public. Because the war was so short, we couldn't pull it off. This was last war.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's hard to picture Foxhole that far ahead of what I was talking about and what you're suggesting. It's more so a matter of what Foxhole means to. This is getting real abstract. I'm sorry, but like what Foxhole means to us when we play it, and I think Foxhole's soul deep down inside, I don't think it's so much about the game. I think we all agree it's not about winning or losing, although that plays into, the stories. Obviously, there needs to be winning and losing. But I think it's more so about the experience, right? So that's why we talk about how do you make losing more fun? How do you make, backline stuff more entertaining and make it more something encouraging a culture in that way? That's kind of something the PressCorps has tried to encourage just by the virtue of its mission, although we've been busy. They have other stuff going on. So I I always think back to those moments in other MMOs. I haven't had the pleasure of, or the displeasure of playing other MMOs where things like Second Life, where people will like really role play moment to moment, just hanging out with each other in a virtual chat room. So instead of people in a Discord, in a chat, 5 people typing, it's 5 people like walking around in a house in a table and like doing stuff, doing emotes, crouching up and down to like show excitement and stuff. How do you translate that? Not exactly, of course. We don't need necessarily full on Second Life in
It's the
Foxhole.
small things. It's the small things. Like today, there were a warden moving up. Right, I had an anti-aircraft gun, but I couldn't hit him. I tried to turn. Then I went out of it to try to kill him with my rifle, but and then I saw 3 wardens. I ended up going back in, shooting all those 3 wardens, stabbing the other warden to death, then going over, saluting those 3 wardens who got shot, and those wardens were laughing their asses off because they didn't expect me. It's the small things that matter in this game. At least from my perspective.
No, absolutely. The small things add up, from like quality of life, headaches, and changes to things like that. So it's a struggle. It's a day by day struggle. We're in the trenches. We're literally in the trenches, and we're metaphorically in the trenches of just testing this game out together. So we'll see where it all goes. We are at time, personal time for me. I'm glad we could do a little bit of overtime and get some.
What time is it for you, Geoffrey?
It is 11 on the East Coast, so we will about to close
It's
it
5
soon.
a.m.
Oh, I thought. I think we got. Okay, I'll always make time for Rhodes Go Ever On. I'll always make time for you, Rhodes. I'll extend the roads.
I did not I was actually just typing in the voiceless line.
Yeah, I saw that.
Oh man, it's the timer again.
Oh yeah, Geoffrey, you might want to close the queue.
Oh, that's a good idea. But anyway, yeah, Rhodes, you had a story for us.
Yeah, on the subject of actually, before I jump into that, I'm gonna say I'm gonna call you out real quick, Mr. Jennings.
Anytime.
You said you're looking for more. You said you're looking for more people to help with the press thing, and yet in your DMs right now, you have a message from me from the last.
I know, right?
Zero Dark 30.
I have so many
yes,
DMs that I open and then never revisit. It's really shameful. It's insulting.
I know, and like
to dozens of people.
I'm totally not like trying to shame you on like.
No, you should, because it's really bad. It's a horrible
television, radio.
I'll open the DM at work and then not address it until like 72 hours later. It's great.
Oh jeez. I'll give it a couple days and then I'll look again. So it's not like right after you're done, like doing.
You know all those voiceovers I do at the beginning of I Saw Bears videos, or at the end sometimes. he will like send me a request. I'm like, oh yeah, cool. And then I will like not do it, and then he'll ping me again like, hey, this was a thing 3 days ago. I'm like, oh shoot. All right, fine, I'll do it now.
Then just any advice to anyone trying to contact Geoffrey, ping him multiple times if necessary.
Yeah, that's a good
This
idea.
This would be ping number 2.
My God.
I just thought it'd be
Spam
funny.
him
This is ping number 2. Rhodes, go ahead.
Yeah, so I have an actual story. So this happened during this war. This war, I'm running Colonial, and something. There's a small little incident that happened. I want to say like 5 days ago, 4 days ago, something like that. So I was doing a little bit of colonial work around Fisherman's Row, and we spot a random warden ship going south through our bridges, going into the Westgate region, actually. And a few of us were like, hey, what's that all about? Fisherman's Row is kind of quiet at the moment. I'm like, why not? I'm going to redeploy over to Longshore and check it out. These two wardens land on Handsome Hideaway, and if you're not too familiar with the backline, that is the one big island that all it has an observation tower, and that's it in Westgate. They land there, so a whole bunch of us in the local chat are like, okay, well, somebody's trying to build up some base. Let's go, like, take care of it and such. Me and one other person make little dinghies at 2 different spots and try to intercept. The other person steals their barge. I guess I don't know if they wrenched it or just left it unlocked or whatever, but they stole their barge. We circled the island. They have no way off, so it's a couple of wardens that are just kind of stranded on their own island. And 20 minutes later, they're still there. They're not building anything. They're actually staying inside the observation tower. They can, like, radius. They can clearly see that they are on our radar. So we were all kind of asking each other, like, what do we want to do about this? And I'm like, I'm already kind of halfway here. I'll just land. I'll beach and I'll go check it out. I land on the south side and they're walking up north. So I walk like the length of the island and I come up on them. And there's the 2 wardens both sitting on the north side of the island. One of them's, I don't know if they were sitting down, if that's actually an emote. I haven't tried that, but I know there was talked about in the past. But he was like crouching to emote, like sitting down. The other one was standing just off to the side, and they were off just looking into the ocean and such. And it was a really peaceful moment. However, they were wardens and I was colonial, and I kind of wanted to make sure they weren't a threat. So I had my rifle and I called out, hey, what are you 2 doing? One of them pulls out a pistol, and I'm not going to take the chance. I shoot that guy. I look at the other one. He says, I'm unarmed. I say, I can't. He types, I'm unarmed. I say, I cannot trust that. And there's this weird moment right there where I don't think either of us really knew what to do. Because a lot of, as far as like what you're supposed to do in Foxhole is, if you're a warden, you shoot colonials. If you're colonial, you shoot warden. That's like, that is the script that we are culturally given. But this was a weird situation where there was still that, like, potential threat. There was some, like, maybe they're spying, maybe they're just hanging out, maybe they're a threat, maybe they're not. I don't know. But the soldier that's standing in front of them, that's holding a rifle out to them, like, what is that soldier thinking? What are they trained to do?
That is literally the scene in Band of Brothers where Captain Winters is charging over there, throws the red smoke grenade, charges through the field alone, reaches the top of the top of the hill, and then he sees an unarmed German soldier, no gun in his hand. He's a young kid, and younger guy, and he's like, there's like a pause where he looks him in the eyes, and it's like, what do I do? And then he just shoots him because it's like he has to complete his mission. Anyone who's seen Band of Brothers knows what I'm talking about, and it's like that moment. You brought me back to that moment, and that's a great story. What did you wind up doing? Did you just shoot him?
You are not going to like what the answer to that question, especially for any wardens that are listening in on this, because it was really bad, and it was a bit of, okay. Let me actually say it. I shot the one because it was close. It was pretty close, and I was using an actual like rifle. He went into his downed state, so he wasn't dead. He was like on the ground.
Right,
bleeding.
right.
So the other, I already said the other one said that he was unarmed. I said I couldn't trust that. I can't see that he doesn't have a rifle. But I didn't want to shoot him either. I feel like that was like for some reason in my head I was like that's wrong. I'm like no, there's like I can't shoot like both of them right now. So I'm like what am I going to do like as a colonial in this moment? So I tell him get in the water.
What the fuck?
And he hops in the water, and I'm holding essentially the scene there, and he types out "you monster," and I'm like, I'm sorry, I cannot trust you. And he
So you
ends
just
up
left him
drowning.
there floating, right?
Yeah. And here's the thing, like I feel like that is if a colonial comes up on like this situation, that is what their training, indoctrination, whatever you want to call it, like that is what the colonials are trained to do against wardens. But then there's me, the player on the other side of that, that is feeling this really weird, like, kind of pit in my stomach feeling like this is not a good feeling. This is a weird thing that just happened. That makes sense for like colonial and warden, but as a player, I'm like, ooh, this is.
I'd probably just have talked to the wardens for a while, and maybe just left them alone.
I think it was text
Something
only.
like that.
Did you force him to swim until drowning?
Yes.
Okay.
I will also say, as a player, I am not particularly proud of that. I'm not sitting here trying to be like a warden basher or anything. And there have been a few when I used to play colonial. I would like there were a couple. I'm sorry, when I used to play warden, there were a few colonial friends that like towards the end of a war we would go hang out at some place that wasn't like any like operational security, just like hang out or whatever. When at times where it didn't really matter. This was just a particularly weird moment as far as like war stories that happen. That I'm like this. I don't know. It was just different enough to give me some pretty big pause and say like, what is actually happening here?
That is an awesome story. But another thing. This doesn't make sense. You could have done that thing in Saving Private Ryan where they capture the one German dude, and they're about to kill him, but then Tom Hanks goes, "Okay, hold on. All right, fine. He's literally crying for his life. We'll put a blindfold on him, and then we'll have him walk 1,000 meters towards the Allied lines, and then he'll get picked up by the first patrol." What you should have done was force him to literally in real life put on a blindfold, and then tell him, okay, look this way. Okay, good. Just hold down W, and then the moment you hear a colonial, tell them the moment you see a colonial or hear a colonial, take off the blindfold and tell them who you are and who sent you. Impractical.
That would have been absolutely crazy. I think the equivalent would have been something like, okay, get in this barge. Like if you jump out at any time on the barge, like using the game mechanics.
Right. That makes more sense.
I would bring a barge and then bring them over to Warden Waters, just close enough to a shore. I'm like, okay, hop off. Do not tell anyone. You know,
one issue though, you can't travel with enemies in the vehicle. So you would have to land them somewhere where they could run back to their own lines.
I see. One, I did not know that. And two, I think I would have been much more comfortable like doing something like that, or even just like sitting and hanging out with them on the rocks. If I could see on their person that they were actually unarmed.
That's another thing, and what someone was, whoever was talking about the uniforms actually showcasing what they carry, that would be very useful, or shake someone down. Someone else said, or Tauzef said, that it'd be cool that you could like maybe double hit the surrender button, and then he would automatically drop your entire inventory.
Yeah, that's the other thing. That crossed my mind. I could say drop your entire inventory, but I could, as a player, I could not trust.
What's
it was
the surrender button?
Like immersion breaking.
What's that emote?
Are you guys still live?
Yeah, we are. Well, I'm gonna close it out soon. What's the surrender emote? It's like 9, I think, or 8.
It's either 8 or 9.
I think
Yeah.
it's 9. Yeah, it's 9.
It'd be cool to
you
see.
You can't stun people. You can't stun, so you can, like in Thramoun, for example, you could stun a person and then take everything out of their inventory if you feel like it.
That's
It'd be
never
cool.
gonna happen.
It would be
no.
so cool
Yeah,
if
never.
instead of, okay, so right now the surrender emote is kind of annoying because it has to be you surrender and then it automatically goes through this cycle that kind of expires at the end. It'd be cool that you could hold down, I'm going to assume 9 is the emote, if it isn't, whatever, but you could hold down 9 and then as however long you hold on to it, so after 5 seconds it'll automatically drop like a personal crate of all your items, literally everything you have, and it'll be, let's say, 3 meters away from you, so you can't pick stuff up again immediately. And then for however long you hold down that 9 button, you will be in the surrender,
In that locked
locked in that. So then you have this tense, like almost like a stick-up situation, like someone trying to keep a bank robbery going, and they're trying to keep a crowd pacified. Like you watch who's still holding down that 9 button, as opposed to they're just having to spam it. And then
I could see that.
So then you could like if someone wants to surrender, you could start shouting, "Hold down 9, hold down 9, hold down the 9 button," and then they would go into that state and they would throw all their items into the crate. Oh, that'd be so cool if you could do that.
I do remember way back before like world conquest was a thing, when it was just like each region was its own war.
Right.
There was what was it, like 3 walls and a gate, and you had prisoner of war camps.
I do remember some of those.
I don't know if yeah, like
that was hard. That was more hardcore
really...
role playing than the PressCorps.
Alright,
you literally had to role play POW.
One resistance phase, 4 wardens came up to me and my clan. We were doing some anti-partisaning, right? 4 wardens came up to me and my clan and said, "We want to be POWs, scrapping for you guys." Like, what the fuck?
That's
I
funny.
was like, fair enough.
That would almost be like a liability.
In like way back then, it was kind of fun in a weird way, just to like in a role playing sense.
Oh yeah.
Hey, Johansen. Johansen. Well, Johansen. What you should have done is you should have built Foxholes up to 49 out of 50 BMATs. And then once you want to execute them, line them up against the wall, have everyone complete the Foxholes, and then just have the AI kill them.
Well, one thing, actually, I remember once, it was back in the day, where Aristown still were a port base. We captured a warden, and that warden, for his release, the wardens would have to give supplies to the colonials, and there would be this in exchange. Now, the people trying to exchange the warden for the supplies couldn't get him into an APC, where he would be to be safe from Foxholes, because they did it in a weird way. He was surrounded by sandbag walls and so on. So he ended up dying, and no supplies, nobody got any supplies. But still, it was very interesting seeing this warden being stuck in sandbags, promising the colonial supplies for his release.
Yeah. I should also mention that the suggestion of like surrendering, just the concept of surrendering doesn't make any sense at all, because life is meaningless because it's a game and you can just respawn. So why would you give equipment willingly? Why would you want to survive to do that? And of course there are role players like us who would totally love that because we're weird. But Brownie, you had a suggestion for POWs that would actually integrate them into the game and make them a mechanic and kind of encourage it while also making it something useful, right?
Yeah, it wasn't supposed to be human POW camps. That'll never happen. Due to the mere fact that you can just alt F4, or it'd be one of the most boring tasks in the game. It was more for AI.
Right.
I just slept. I passed out like 2 hours ago.
That's fine. I should be sleeping right now. I'll finish with this. I distinctly remember. I don't know how widespread this was. It was hammers out. That was the surrender method. Is hammers out because a hammer is useless, and it takes up your primary slot. So you can't use any primary weapons anymore. So it'd be hammers out, and come towards the line with your hammers out, and then they would see that and they wouldn't shoot you. I don't know how widespread that actually was. It might have been just a meme, but I remember that one being cool.
We need to reintegrate that.
Maybe.
We need
It's
to bring
better
it
than the
back.
surrender key.
And on the subject of like the Alt F4, like I actually think that's a pretty good way to do it. I've seen other communities do similar things where like, yeah, you can role play, and if there's ever a time, like in Foxhole, where a POW becomes like too serious of an idea, or maybe you just have work coming up and you just don't have time, you can always hit return home. There's your consent button, if you will. That's your like, I no longer want to do this, is no longer fun. I'm just going to return home and then get back to the actual fight. It always allows the player to get out.
There almost needs you would need like a benefit for self-preservation. You know what I'm talking about? Like, how does this actually benefit the person surrendering? If we're talking about this semi-seriously.
That's what Talzef is kind of bringing up. It
I'm
makes
sorry.
each spawn made more meaningful. Well, he's typing it, or she, I don't know, Talzef.
Yeah.
They are typing it in the Voiceless Lounge channel.
I think the longer you survive, let's say there's a queue, right? Then there's a respawn time, right? Then the longer you survive, the shorter the respawn time will be, because sometimes we've experienced 1 minute respawn time. And I think it's stupid that I have survived for like 10 minutes popping wardens left and right, of course without my press tags on. Let's just clear that. Popping wardens left and right. Then then I have to wait this 1 minute whilst there's a lot of people just running into enemy gunfire, dying immediately, having the same timer as me. It should be more on the more you die, the longer the waiting time, which will emphasize not dying.
Personally, I'm with you, but I know there's a large swath of people that would just absolutely hate that idea. Personally, I don't mind respawn timers because it's like, hey, it gives me time to think, as opposed to just spamming my self towards the front line over and over again. What if it was like, if you surrender, you get rewarded for actually surrendering by like a shirt refund, but then you can't play the game, to discourage people from just giving up that easily and denying the enemy the satisfaction of the kill.
Then they can't play the game for, let's say, 10 minutes.
Yeah, so 10 minutes maybe. Maybe even 5 to 10 is too long, but I don't know, but something like that. So you get a shirt refund, but it's 5 minutes. That way it's like, okay, it's like a small reward for actually surrendering. And also, if, going back to Brownie, if the enemy actually takes the time to, so like you surrender your body, like your actual player, back to the screen, but then your former body, kind of like how critical wounded works, it's like you're not the critical wounded person anymore, you respawn somewhere else. So then the enemy can take that POW back to the town hall for like shirts or something.
Actually, I think it should go the other direction.
Oh yeah?
When the guy dies on the field?
Say again, Hitoshi?
Isn't that basically the same thing as say, the guy getting wounded on the field, so he respawns?
Yes, it would be like that, only you're like willingly like surrendering to take part of it, but Rose had a different take on it.
Yeah, I think that if a player is taken as a prisoner of war, like this would be introducing a new mechanic in the game where there would be a player state in which they are a POW. If they die in that player state, it costs the respawn would actually cost more. It would be like 5 shirts or something like that. Here's the offset though. Prisoner exchange. If both sides have POWs, you can exchange prisoners, and that releases that player state. It would also give each team the ability to gather intel on that other team, as the POWs are actually seeing what's going on, but also that could be part of the game mechanic, where if you are returned to your side, maybe there is like random intel that appears on the map. I'm kind of combining an idea I had and some of...
There is like, if you pass a defense, there's let's say 15% chance if you get back to your own line, it'll show on the map.
Something like that, yeah. Talzef made that comment. I'm tying that in here, and kind of adding in the concept of prisoner exchanges, because as far as like war stories and things, along with POWs, that prisoner exchange is the perfect kind of like tense story element that could pop up in that situation.
There's another thing I wish to talk about. This is more.
Johansen, we'll close with you.
Yes, it's more for ammo. You know, let's say you have a rifle with 7 bullets in it. You put it in the town hall, or the fob, or the relic, based on and so forth, and it just disappears. Just gone. My idea was there would be an internal counter, nothing visual, but an internal counter. So let's say you have put in a rifle 7 bullets, then the counter will go up by 7. And let's say you put in a rifle with another 7 bullets, then it'll go up to 14, but it'll actually be 2, because those 12 bullets will now become a clip in the town hall to not waste ammo.
So the town hall or safe house, etc., itself would have an ammo clip.
Yeah, so if, let's say you have 2 rifles with 6 bullets in it, you put it in, then you get a clip back. But if one of them has 5 and the other one has 6, then there'll be an internal counter saying it's 11.
Oh, it's
basically not to waste ammo. I've experienced multiple times the inventory of a town hall, fob, and so on being filled up with these weapons because people do not want to put them in. Say, don't put it in because there's ammo in it, we can use it. Especially if you're low on supplies, it would just be a waste of bullets and a waste of materials.
Okay, we need to close this out. Johansen, Rhodes, Tauzef, and Brownie, you gentlemen start a task force on human rights on how we can get POWs integrated into the game or something. But hey, to everyone still here, my goodness, thanks for sticking around with us. We went into overtime, extra time, beyond times here, and yeah. Thank you so much for tuning in. We had some excellent discussion tonight with Mark. Some very, very good questions, and I'm glad we were able to field as many as we possibly could, humanly could, with the time he was allotting us. Again, Mark always giving us more time than he was originally promising, just because he's like that. So, in any case, we're going to close out. For the PressCorps, I'm Geoffrey Jennings. Good night and good fight.
The PressCorps is a non-profit creative collective of artists, reporters, and players from the MMO video game Foxhole by Clapfoot. Our mission is to engross our audience in and amplify the stories of this unique war ecosystem. The PressCorps was founded in early 2018 by former Planetside 2 Radio Free Araxis host, Captain-in-Arms. It is a separate community entity and is in no way representative of Clapfoot. For more info, visit the PressCorps Discord through the link below.